Ever since I was old enough to understand, I knew I could never live for myself. I was born as my parents' bargaining chip to curry favor with the powerful Fu family in the capital. In my sophomore year, my parents transferred me to the high school where Fu Yi attended. They wanted me to win Fu Ye's favor and stand out among all the arranged marriage candidates to become the Fu family's daughter-in-law. But back then, Fu Yi already had a girl by his side. I watched as Fu Yi softened his usually carefree gaze before her, pressing a reverent kiss to her forehead. I witnessed the blazing youth Fu Yi shared with that girl, scenes that remained vivid even after I married him. I understood. What I possessed was merely the boy who'd shone brightly in someone else's youth. So when given a second chance, I chose to fight back. 1. I applied a bandage to the wound on my neck. Only then did I turn to look at the villa complex behind me, smiling with relief. Reborn anew, the first thing I did was threaten to kill myself, to force my parents to stop scheming against me, though it ultimately came at a heavy price, trading my freedom for a contract to repay their child-rearing expenses of $1 million before turning 30. Thankfully it worked out in the end, though they'll withdraw all their investments in me, but they'll still cover my basic living expenses until high school graduation. After that, I'll be fully responsible for all college tuition and living costs. Sitting in the classroom, I truly felt the tangible reality of being reborn. My gaze drifted toward the figure seated diagonally ahead, Fu Yi. Just then, a cool breeze from the window billowed through his oversized white school uniform shirt. The boy radiated an irrepressible youthful energy. A carefree smile played on his lips, his eyes softening with tenderness. Yet all these expressions were reserved solely for the girl beside him. Tang Mangua wasn't just Fu Ye's deskmate, she was still his girlfriend, the perfect match. They'd been the school's golden couple since freshman year, the envy of everyone, even when the school initially tried to intervene. But they were simply too brilliant. Their relationship never affected their academic performance, so the school tacitly accepted the situation. They even used it as motivation for other students. Want to date? Fine, just outscore Fu Yi and Tang Mangua as a couple. But who could have predicted, those deeply in love young sweethearts still ended up apart. Instead, it was me, the peeping Tom lurking in the shadows, who got lucky. I even felt secretly pleased for a while, but after marriage, Fu Ye's coldness towards me, even when we shared a bed at night, he still acted like he was just fulfilling an obligation. It suddenly dawned on me, the truth was, even though I had him, he wasn't the radiant boy who shone in my youth anymore. I'd fought with Fu Yi over this, cried my heart out. I even steeled my heart to file for divorce, but he refused, saying he'd fulfill his duties as a husband. When faced with my unreasonable tantrums, he'd only respond with silence. My time at home keeps getting shorter. I practically live at the office now. I'm slowly losing myself in self-pity, growing gloomier by the day, until one fateful day, when Fu Yi was driving me to the hospital for a checkup, we got into a car accident. The moment that out-of-control truck came barreling toward us, in that moment, I felt no fear at all, only a strange sense of relief. The violent impact when the cars collided knocked me unconscious instantly. In my dazed state, I vaguely saw Fu Yi cradling my bloodied body, weeping uncontrollably, but I quickly dismissed the thought. I thought self-mockingly, why would Fi ever shed tears for me? When I opened my eyes again, I'd assumed I'd miraculously survived. Never did I expect to be reborn straight back into my high school years. Watching the figures leaning against each other ahead, the last lingering thought in my heart completely dissolved. Perhaps there's another way to live my youth. 2. Jian Sui, are you sure about this? In the office, my homeroom teacher stared at me with a grave expression. Even after seeing me nod, she still seemed puzzled. You do excel in science, but weren't you always adamant about choosing liberal arts? What made you change your mind all of a sudden? I hung my head. The liberal arts track had been forced on me by the Jian parents, all because Fu Ye's crush, Tang Mangua, was in the arts stream. Their thinking was quite simple. Now that Fu Yi has a girlfriend, if I want to win Fu Ye's affection, I just need to mimic his current girlfriend. Having been reborn, I naturally don't need to follow their plans anymore. I looked up and smiled at my homeroom teacher, because the sun came up, though it sounded rather nonsensical. But when I chose to return to science stream, my teacher was genuinely pleased. After the first year high school vacation ended, I had chosen the science track. The new semester would soon bring class reassignments. On the final day of the break, I went to the barbershop, got rid of the long hair and heavy bangs, switched to a shoulder-length bob. Hey, you've got great fashion sense, kid. That shortcut perfectly suits your face shape, so much more elegant now." After finishing my haircut, Tony the stylist lavished compliments while looking at my reflection in the mirror. Seeing my refreshed look in the mirror, I smiled with satisfaction. First day back from vacation, classmates immediately gathered around, staring at me with amazed expressions. "Jian Sui, you cut your long hair. The short hair looks amazing on you. Totally different vibe, right? Like that badass female scientist from zombie movies." The chattering voices of classmates caught the attention of Fu Yi, who'd been resting his eyes at the front desk. He merely cast a casual glance over his shoulder before turning away. "My parents' wish for me to marry into the Fu family is nothing but their own wishful thinking. Our family isn't even in a position to speak with the Fuss as equals now. Even getting information about Fu Ye's school took them considerable effort. So even though I was fed a lot of information about Fu Ye's preferences since childhood, I've never actually interacted with him. To Fu Yi, I'm just a complete stranger, and that suits me perfectly. It's best if we remain strangers." High school life passed in the blink of an eye. Before I knew it, I was already a sophomore. During freshman year, I thoroughly reviewed the knowledge gaps from my past studies. Now I've finally regained my previous academic standing. In my past life, my science grades consistently ranked within the top 10 of my grade before class streaming, but now, with the advantage of my past memories, I'd broken into the top 5 academically. Even during sophomore year's opening exams, I actually made it to second place at one point. Only Fu Yi managed to stay ahead of me. "Damn, brother Yi, your top ranking might be in jeopardy. This Jian Sui is actually in your class, right? Are you close with her?" A crowd of students gathered around the honor roll to check the rankings. I happened to overhear Fu Ye's conversation with his friend. After Fu Ye's friend finished speaking, Fu Yi didn't respond immediately, just stared blankly at the scores on the honor roll. There was only a 5-point gap between us. He kept staring for over a minute before finally turning away, tossed a casual "we're not close" to his friend. During a math class shortly after the start of sophomore year, the math teacher gave us an Olympiad-level problem. It served as a qualifying test for the math competition team. I'd been wanting to join math competitions ever since choosing the science track. After all, only by climbing higher can I truly expand my horizons. That's what adds a fresh hue to my youth. Problem after problem, until the very last one. The practice questions alone filled the entire blackboard. Just as the whole class fell silent, I raised my hand, solved the problem flawlessly. The classroom instantly erupted in chaos. 3. Holy crap, Jian Sui's a legend. Even Fu Yi couldn't crack this problem. At this rate, Jian Sui overtaking Fu Yi for the top spot in our grade is practically a done deal. Seriously, Jian Sui's improvement is insane. She's radiating such academic goddess energy now. My sapiosexuality is acting up. Sapiosexuality my ass, you just think Jian Sui's hot. The classmates were bantering back and forth when suddenly someone blurted out, "Hey, do you think Jian Sui and Fu Yi would make a good couple? They're both really good looking and top students too." Hard to say, even though we're all classmates, but I've never seen Jian Sui and Fu Yi interact. They don't even seem to talk to each other. Besides, Fu Yi already has a girlfriend. Look at Fu Ye's girlfriend, she's nothing like Jian Sui. He probably doesn't go for that type. No worries, I'm into someone like our Jian Sui. Get lost. Do you really think Jian Sui would even look your way? I overheard all the classmates' gossip, but inwardly, I just smiled faintly. It didn't bother me in the slightest. While working on the competition problems, I failed to notice Fu Yi in front turning to glance at me with an inscrutable expression. The eve of the competition coincided with midterm exams, and it was during these very midterms I surpassed Fu Yi to claim the top spot in science subjects. My classmates witnessed this moment and showered me with congratulations. After expressing my gratitude to each of them, my thoughts turned to tomorrow's competition. The preliminary and provincial rounds were already behind me. Now the grand finale would take me overseas. Both Fu Yi and I were seeded competitors in this tournament. Our beaming math teacher led our team abroad as the faculty advisor. The day of finals arrived. All those sleepless nights pulling 4-hour rests finally paid off. The rest of the time was spent practicing competition problems. In mathematics, natural talent is ultimately what matters most, but hard work should never be underestimated. I don't consider myself particularly gifted. I just want to be someone who gives their all. So when I won the gold medal in the competition, my heart swelled with pride in having truly changed myself. pride in having grown to reach this point. At the judges' panel, I finally saw the elder I'd long wished to meet, Mr. Tang. "I'd like to become your student." Summoning my courage, I made the request right there at the awards ceremony. The old gentleman paused, then looked at me with unmistakable appreciation in his eyes. "Do you have a passion for aerospace?" I nodded vigorously. The old man smiled and then gave me his contact information, saying I could come directly to him when I was ready. "That's why I'm competing, to secure early admission by sophomore year, so I can move to Beijing as a junior and study advanced coursework with the professors. Plus, I'll be able to start earning money earlier to repay the million I owe the Jian family." My math teacher patted my shoulder with a wistful expression. "Jian Sui, this path won't be easy, you know, with such lofty aspirations. You have my full support as your teacher." After the competition ended, I gave it my all to accomplish what I set out to do, met the person I wanted to see, and shared my ambitions with them. Everything is unfolding exactly as I envisioned, and I couldn't be happier. Feeling completely at ease, I wandered the foreign streets for hours. As dusk fell, I strolled back to the hotel, needing to rise early tomorrow for my return flight. Just as I reached the hotel entrance, I spotted Fuyi standing there. He seemed to be waiting for someone, but I didn't inquire further. After all, as my classmates said after being reborn, I genuinely don't know him well. I was just about to pretend I hadn't seen him and walk right past, but he stopped me, startled. I looked up and met his fathomless gaze. "The teacher noticed you hadn't returned, so they sent me to check." He explained his purpose, and I nodded in sudden understanding, apologizing sheepishly. "Sorry, I lost track of time while wandering around." "You've had a long day, go get some rest. We've got an early start tomorrow." With that, I turned to leave, but before I could take 2 steps, someone grabbed my wrist. Startled, I turned back to see Fuyi looking at me with confusion. "Is there something else?" Fei remained silent, just staring at me with an intensity one couldn't decipher, his eyes swirling with unreadable emotions. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. "Do we have some kind of grudge between us?" I was completely baffled by why he'd ask such a thing. I shook my head. "No." "Then why have you been avoiding me?" Fei stared straight at me, his eyes brimming with curiosity. The question caught me off guard. Instinctively, I tried to pull my wrist back, but his grip only tightened. The boy's palm was warm, rough with calluses, his grip oddly forceful. "I'm not avoiding you." I kept my voice deliberately calm. "We were never close to begin with. Nothing left to say." That much was true. In our past life, we only lasted until marriage. We'd never exchanged more than 50 proper words between us. He was always preoccupied with the Fu family affairs. I kept trying to figure out how to please him, yet we remained like parallel lines never meant to meet. They shared the same roof, yet never truly connected. Fei's brows knitted together. The streetlight cast a faint shadow across his aquiline nose. "Strangers." He repeated those 2 words with an indescribable tone. "We've been sitting in the same classroom for nearly 2 years since freshman year. You don't even say hello when we meet." Last time in front of the honor roll, when my friend asked who you were, I actually couldn't answer. I remained silent. How could I tell him I'd seen how he loved someone else in a past life, knowing I was just a stand-in? I kept my distance this time around. "During the competition, the auxiliary line method you used for the final problem." He abruptly changed the subject, his gaze settling on my face. "It's a method I used in my middle school competition class. Nobody knew about it except my teacher back then." My heart skipped a beat. I found it in an old notebook while cleaning his study during what feels like a past life. I naively kept notes about it for the longest time. I thought it might come in handy someday, something we could talk about. Never imagined it would actually be useful at a time like this. Just a coincidence, I guess. I looked away, avoiding his gaze. "I've seen similar problems while practicing." He stared at me for a few seconds before suddenly releasing his grip. "Maybe." Turning away, he walked toward the hotel, his voice drifting faintly behind him. "Get some rest. Don't be late for tomorrow's flight." I stood there watching his figure disappear through the revolving door before finally letting out a sigh of relief. My palms were damp with sweat I hadn't noticed forming, and the warmth of his grip still lingered on my wrist. Back in my room, I collapsed onto the bed and stared blankly at the ceiling. Fu Ye's behavior today was so strange. Why would he suddenly care whether I'd been avoiding him? Was it because I took his spot as the top student in our grade, or was it about that problem's solution? I racked my brains but still couldn't figure out why. I simply pulled out the reading list. Mr. Tang gave me after the competition and got completely absorbed after just 2 pages. The knowledge of aerospace is like a vast sea of stars. Once you dive in, nothing else seems to matter. Life returned to normal after coming back home. 5. Every day was spent attending classes, grinding through practice problems, and camping out at the library, with occasional part-time jobs for pocket money. The early admission slots for senior year have been finalized, as long as I maintain my current grades. I'll be heading to Beijing next year without a hitch. Jane's parents called me twice. Their tone was probing, asking if I'd reconsider choosing liberal arts. They mentioned the Fu family was expanding into new ventures, and a daughter-in-law with humanities background would fit better. I hung up immediately, and they never called again. Tang Mangua actually reached out to me once, that day after school. She stopped me at the entrance of the teaching building. She was wearing a pink dress with her hair cascading down her shoulders, looking gentle and lovely. Jian Sui, could I talk with you for a moment? I froze for a second, wondering why Tang Mangua had approached me, but I nodded anyway and followed her to the camphor tree by the playground. Do you have feelings for Fu Yi? She got straight to the point, her eyes glinting with wariness. I was taken aback, confused. Why would you ask that? I barely even know him. Did you hear some gossip or something? Then why do you always compete with him for first place? Why did you use his old problem-solving method during the competition? Why the sudden haircut and makeover? She fired off questions in rapid succession, her voice tinged with grievance. You were never like this before, you never fought over anything with anyone. Only then did I realize that, in her eyes, all these changes I'd made were for Fu Yi's sake, in my past life. That had indeed been the case. Her intuition wasn't wrong. Just the timeline was off. Tang Mangua, I looked into her eyes and said earnestly, I did all this for myself. I want to test into Beijing and study aerospace under Professor Tang. I want to pay back what I owe my family with my own earnings. This has nothing to do with Fu Yi. She clearly didn't buy it, biting her lip as she said, then why do you always avoid him? Why are you afraid to talk to him? Because there's no need. I shrugged. We were never from the same world to begin with, and our paths won't cross again. Don't worry, I have zero interest in Fu Yi. What more do you want? I'm actively avoiding him, with zero interaction. There's no way anything could develop between us. Why are you being so paranoid? With that, I turned and walked away without looking back. Her tearful voice called after me, saying something I couldn't, and didn't want to, make out. Truth be told, I felt a pang of disappointment too. I still have rose-tinted glasses when it comes to Tang Mangua. After all, even after Fu Yi married me in our past life, she remained his eternal white moonlight. As someone who topped the humanities subjects, I naturally assumed she was highly intelligent. Who knew she'd stoop to petty catfights now? Ever since then, Tang Mangua's gaze toward me changed, laced with a hint of hostility. 6. Fu Yi remained unchanged, though. He still walked to and from school with Tang Mangua daily, only occasionally stealing glances at me during class. I didn't dwell on it. After all, I'd be leaving this place in 6 months anyway. On a December day, the first snow of the year began to fall. The bubble tea shop where I worked was packed, and I didn't clock out until 10 p.m. When I stepped outside, the snow had piled up thick, crunching underfoot with each step, hugging my coat tighter. I headed for the bus stop when suddenly someone called my name from behind. Jian Sui. Turning around, Fu Yi stood beneath the streetlight. A light dusting of snow covered his shoulders as he held a black umbrella. Let me walk you home. No thanks. I waved my hand. The bus stop is just ahead. It's too late. The buses stopped running hours ago. He stepped closer, tilting the umbrella mostly toward me. I've been waiting here for nearly an hour. I froze. Why were you waiting for me? Mangua said some inappropriate things to you, didn't she? He looked at me with heavy eyes. I've already explained to her. There's nothing going on between us. I was even more confused. Whatever's between you two has nothing to do with me. It does. He suddenly came to a halt. Snowflakes settled on his long lashes like a dusting of frost. Jian Sui, tell me, have you been reborn? My heart clenched violently, as if seized by an invisible hand. Blood rushed to my head in an instant, then turned ice cold through my veins the next moment. How could he know? Did he also get reborn? You? My lips parted wordlessly as I could only stare at him, frozen in shock. He suddenly laughed at my stunned expression. There was a hint of relief in that smile, yet also something bittersweet. So it's true. His hand reached out as if to touch my hair, then withdrew midair. During the car crash, I held your body in my arms. I heard your last words. It's all coming back to me now. In my final moments before losing consciousness, I did say something. I said, "Fi, if given another chance, I wouldn't want anything to do with you ever again." So he actually heard it. Turns out he's also been reborn with memories from his past life. I have no idea when exactly he was reincarnated, but given this second chance, I genuinely have nothing left to say to him. The snow fell heavier. Swallowing all surrounding sounds, we stood beneath the streetlight, neither of us speaking. Only the whisper of snowflakes landing on the umbrella broke the silence. Why, after what felt like forever, he finally spoke hoarsely, "Was I not good enough to you in our past life?" 7. As I looked at him, an absurd feeling suddenly washed over me. Shouldn't he know damn well how he treated me in our past life? Fuyi. I took a deep breath, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Whether you treat me well or not doesn't matter. What matters is I refuse to live that way anymore. Walking on eggshells every single day, obsessing over your preferences until I nearly forgot my own name. One taste of that life was more than enough. I can tell you've always regretted not marrying Tang Mangua in your past life. Now that you're reborn, isn't this your chance to make things right? We were miserable together in our last life, why cling to me now?" His face turned pale, lips pressed into a thin line. "So all the changes you've made in this lifetime were just to avoid me?" "Not entirely." I shook my head, "Mostly for my own sake, though avoiding you was part of the plan." He fell silent, his eyes brimmed with a storm of emotions, loneliness, confusion, and a sorrow I couldn't quite decipher. "But I remember," he said suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I remember how we were after we got married. You always cried secretly at night. I thought you were after the Fu family's shares, craving higher status, until that car accident day, when I held your lifeless body in my arms. Only then did I suddenly remember. Your eyes used to shine when you first married me." My tears fell without warning. Oh, how happy I was when I first married him. Thought I'd finally gotten everything I ever dreamed of. Believed just a little more effort could melt his heart. Looking back now, I was such a naive fool. Fi, it's all in the past now. I wiped my tears and forced a smile. "In this lifetime, you focus on being with Tang Mangua, and I'll walk my own path. It's better this way, we won't interfere with each other." With that, I brushed past him and stepped into the snow, never looking back. This time, he didn't stop me. In the days that followed, Fuyi truly never contacted me again. 8. We attended the same classroom lectures, yet an invisible chasm lay between us, with neither acknowledging the other. Tang Mangua started looking at me with much kinder eyes, occasionally even flashing me a smile. I poured all my energy into both studies and part-time jobs. During Spring Festival, I stayed behind working overtime at the bubble tea shop to earn triple pay instead of going home. On New Year's Eve, my boss gave me a red envelope and treated me to hot pot. "Young lady, you're working so hard, what are you aiming for?" the boss asked while dipping meat into the hot pot. I took a sip of cola and replied with a smile, "I want to get into a university in Beijing to study aerospace." "That's an admirable ambition." The boss gave me a thumbs up. "If you really make it big someday, don't forget this little shop of mine." I burst out laughing, feeling warmth spread through my chest. This is the life I've always wanted, simple, free, and full of promise. The official admission notice arrived at the end of March. I went to the office with the notice to see our homeroom teacher, only to run into Fuyi there. He was holding a study abroad application. "Looks like he's planning to attend university overseas. Congratulations," he said first, his tone flat and unreadable. "Same to you." I nodded, took the documents from the homeroom teacher, and turned to leave without another word. "Jian Sui," he called after me again. I stopped in my tracks but didn't turn around. "That million," he said, "I can help you repay it." I turned around and looked at him. "Fuyi, do you still not understand? What I want isn't money, nor the position of the Fu family's young mistress. I want my own life." He looked at me with a complex expression in his eyes, as if he'd finally understood something. "I'm sorry," he murmured. It was the first apology he'd ever given me, in this life or the last. I paused, then smiled. "It's okay. It really doesn't matter anymore. All those grievances, the resentment, and the countless nights of weeping dissolved into thin air with those 3 words." In mid-April, I received Professor Tang's reply, telling me I could visit him in the capital during summer break. I immediately quit my job at the bubble tea shop and started packing. The weather was perfect on my last day of school, with bright sunshine. Carrying my backpack, I walked out the school gate and spotted Fuyi and Tang Mangua standing nearby. Tang Mangua seemed upset. staring at the ground as if lost in thought. Fu Yi noticed me and waved. I hesitated for a moment before walking over. I'll be leaving next week, I said. To Capital City? Fu Yi asked. 9, I nodded. Safe travels. He looked at me with calm eyes and said, keep going. I believe in you. You too. I replied with a smile before turning away. After walking some distance, I glanced back to see them still standing there. Sunlight bathed them like a still from a teen romance drama, this time. I felt neither envy nor jealousy, for I knew my own life had begun to shine with its unique radiance. After arriving in the capital, I began studying under Professor Tang. My days became fulfilling yet hectic, shuttling between laboratories and libraries. I took out a student loan and picked up a tutoring gig. It covers tuition and living expenses, plus I can save a bit each month to gradually pay off that million. Also, I've been working on a new project with old Tang recently. Once the patent gets approved, I'll be able to earn that million back in no time. During my free time, I occasionally hear updates about Fu Yi from former classmates. They say he went to a top university abroad, that he broke up with Tang Mangua, and that the Fu family business keeps expanding. I just listen without any particular feelings. A year later, I saved up my first sum of money. The money was transferred to Jane's parents' bank account. They never called, probably gave up on the arranged marriage idea completely. 2 years later, I was giving a presentation at an international aerospace forum. That's when I spotted Fu Yi in the audience, dressed in a suit. He looked far more mature than in high school, accompanied by what appeared to be an assistant. After the presentation, he stopped me. That was excellent. Thank you, I smiled. I heard you're looking for investors. He said, I could back you. I frowned. Stared at him for a moment, then shook my head. No need. 10, but basic living expenses will still be covered until I graduate high school. He stopped me. Consider it, paying a debt from my past life. Please, just give me this chance. He looked at me with eyes that held both relief and reluctance. Jian Sui, I have my own company now. It's also in the aerospace field. Maybe we'll have opportunities to collaborate in the future. I paused for a moment, then smiled and cut him off. Sure, maybe some other time. Anyway, my professor's calling me. Gotta run. See you. With that, I turned and left. Phi watched my retreating figure in silence for a long while before finally lowering his gaze. After that day, neither of us spoke of the past nor questioned the future again. Sunlight streamed through the venue's glass windows, bathing us in its warm, radiant glow. True letting go, I realized, isn't about cutting all ties forever. It's about being able to say hello with ease when we meet again, then continuing our separate journeys forward. My life is finally entirely my own. The end. Story 2. My fiancé Shing Xiao, a psychiatrist, fell in love with his patient Song Zhen. Without hesitation, I reported their affair to the hospital. Shing Xiao faced disciplinary action. Song Zhen later committed suicide due to depression. Shing Xiao took his anger out on me and pushed me off the building. Falling for Song Zhen was my mistake, but how dare you kill her? Let's try this again. I overheard 18-year-old Shing Xiao sending voice messages to Song Zhen. He clarified simply, his tone dripping with affection, Lin Jing and I are just neighbors. It's you I love, my little rose. Just beyond the door, I clutched Shing Xiao's cancer diagnosis in my hand. The paper crumpled from my grip. 1. Shing Xiao and I grew up together as childhood sweethearts, with our families being close. The adults would jokingly talk about arranging a marriage between us when we were kids. Nearly everyone took it for granted that we were an item, we just hadn't made it official yet. During winter break in our senior year of high school, both Shing Xiao and I went for medical checkups. My health is excellent, with all indicators within normal range. Shing Xiao, however, was diagnosed with early-stage leukemia during this checkup. I rushed to Shing Xiao's home immediately after receiving the medical report to review it together. Thanks to prompt treatment, the cancer cells in Shing Xiao's body didn't spread, and he made a full recovery within a year. In my past life, I missed the college entrance exam that year to accompany him through chemotherapy. After retaking the exam a year later, I ended up at a different university and program than I'd originally dreamed of. After Shing Xiao recovered, he performed exceptionally well in the exams. To everyone's surprise, he got into the most prestigious medical school. After graduation, she became a highly sought-after psychiatrist. This time, I won't waste my future and youth nurturing a worthless man. I placed the medical report on the entryway cabinet of the Shing residence. Along with it, I returned the keys granting access to the Shing household. Mr. Shing is constantly tied up with business engagements, leaving early and returning late. Mrs. Shing is hooked on social mahjong games. She won't stop until she's had her daily fix. As for when they'll actually get around to reading that medical report, God only knows. 2. Back home, I saw my parents, looking years younger, enthusiastically discussing something. It felt like a lifetime had passed. My father noticed I'd returned. They just mentioned to me about the family's plan to buy a new home. The place we live in was originally allocated by my parents' work unit. By my senior year of high school, 3 generations had lived there. In their earlier years, my parents barely managed to scrape together the down payment, because I refused to abandon Shing Xiao during his critical illness, especially when his family couldn't afford the medical bills. I even asked my parents to contribute part of our down payment to help the Shings through this tough time. This time, I genuinely smiled and responded enthusiastically at the dinner table. Sounds great. Are we looking at properties in the Southern District? My parents exchanged glances. They've shortlisted several properties, with the one in the Southern District being their top choice. I live in the eastern part of town, while both my school and parents' workplaces are downtown. Commuting to school and work isn't really an issue, it's just that, my mom asked with concern, won't this affect your studies? I smiled faintly. Mom, during the second semester of senior year, I could board at school. It's just, my mother's gaze hesitated for a moment, just can't help you with the move. Mom visibly relaxed after saying that. After dinner, I went back to my room to study, though in truth, I was eavesdropping on my parents' conversation in the next room. My dad said to my mom while washing dishes, kids are always changing their minds, who knows what they really want. When you sounded her out today, didn't she say it wouldn't affect her? My mom said with lingering fear, let's hope so. But with us moving farther away, will Xiaojing really be willing to leave Shing Xiao behind? My dad is more of an optimist. Linjing has always prioritized her studies. Don't worry, she knows her own mind. 3. In my past life, after I started dating Shing Xiao, my mother never really approved of our relationship. I asked her why. You keep giving unconditionally, and Shing Xiao has grown accustomed to your sacrifices. This kind of relationship isn't stable. Once. My mother didn't get to finish her sentence before I cut her off. Back then, Shing Xiao was all I could think about. How could our decade-long relationship possibly be unstable? That's all I could think about, until the day Shing Xiao missed my wedding dress fitting. I went to the hospital to find him. There they were, him lifting Song Jin onto his desk, the two locked in a passionate kiss. Nothing in this world is truly unbreakable or permanent. I secretly snapped photos through the door crack. Then immediately emailed them to all the top hospital administrators. Had Shing Xiao cheated with someone else, I might not have been so consumed by rage, so hellbent on ruining them both. But the one he cheated with was none other than Song Zhen. In their past life, she was the impoverished transfer student Shing Xiao inexplicably fell for during his senior year. For her sake, Shing Xiao bore the stigma of teenage romance, watching his grades plummet, skipping classes, parental summons. Fighting demerits, he committed every conceivable teenage transgression. But what about Song Zhen? She turned Shing Xiao's youth upside down and nearly ruined his future. The moment Shing Xiao was diagnosed with cancer, she cut ties with him immediately. Later, I even helped the cancer-stricken Shing Xiao to reach out to her. Public records reveal a startling contrast in Song Zhen's character. Beneath her gentle, resilient facade lies a tangled web of affairs with wealthy heirs. Watching Shing Xiao fighting for his life in that hospital bed, I ultimately couldn't bring myself to tell him the whole truth. After all these years, Shing Xiao and I are finally getting married. Against all odds, they've found their way back to each other. My years-long relationship with Shing Xiao was like a child I'd raised with my own hands. Only to watch it drown in that river they call time. My heart aches as if bleeding. That's exactly why I'll make them suffer more than I do. But after the truth came out, I never got to witness Shing Xiao coming to me with remorse and apologies. Song Jin is dead. This came completely out of the blue. I had no idea her depression was actually real. I thought it was just another one of her manipulative tactics to win Shing Xiao's sympathy and reconcile with him. Just like in high school when she pretended to be a pitiful scholarship student, only to be seen hopping into a parked Kian around the corner. She's a master at these games, yet Shing Xiao blamed everything on me. He argued with me. Falling for Song Zhen was my mistake. But how dare you kill her? I fired back without backing down. You're blaming me for her death. Why not admit your incompetent medical skills failed to cure her? Shing Xiao, Is this your idea of medical ethics? Treating depression by taking patients to bed, you're engaged, she knew you were getting married, you two messed up first, so why is everything suddenly my fault? Shing Xiao laughed through tears, his sanity hanging by a thread, yet that didn't stop him from shoving me straight out the window. 4. The weightless sensation of plummeting from great heights, everything aligned perfectly with my dream, I screamed in shock, my voice failing me, hearing my cries. My parents rushed into my room to comfort me. Calm down, what's wrong, don't be afraid, it was just a dream, just a dream. I looked up at my concerned parents, wiping the sweat from my forehead. Mom, Dad, can we move out sooner? My parents exchanged glances and agreed for now. After being reborn, I had two modest goals. First, wait for Shing Xiao to die. Second, tell him to get lost. 5. I stayed holed up at home until the new semester began, when Shing Xiao messaged or called. I'd just read without replying. I muted all group chats involving him, since he lived just upstairs from me. He came to visit several times, either he got the door shut in his face, or my parents would brush him off with excuses. Shing Xiao was acting strange. I used to revolve my whole world around him, making him the center of my life. My sudden disappearance must have left him unsettled, but soon, Songzhen became the center of his world. His social media unexpectedly filled with dawn vegetable harvests in the suburbs, snapshots of sunrise from produce carts, quirky market vendor stories. For secure document protection, choose Xiaohu bot reliable, trustworthy, and hassle-free. Yet during the critical Gaokao year, he'd still trek from downtown to Songzhen's rural home to help out. While all students burned the midnight oil preparing for college entrance exams, he basked in the morning sun of the suburbs, toiling in the fields. My eyes bloodshot, I revisited mountains of past exam papers, scrambling for every precious point. At the market, he haggled fiercely with customers over every penny for a pound of vegetables. Between the lines of his social media posts, a shift in perspective became evident. Those carefree days of focusing solely on studies struck him as dreary, suffocating, and mind-numbingly dull. Yet the simple transactions at the wet market seemed vibrant, warm, and brimming with life to his eyes. I couldn't tell which was true. Was Songzhen genuinely this captivating, or had Shing Xiao's brain cells been hijacked by cancer? He's blocked his parents and teachers on social media, while sharing everything openly with classmates and friends. His close friends wouldn't just stand by watching him spiral out of control. When they tried to talk sense into him, he ended up convincing them to buy extra groceries before leaving. They had no choice but to seek help from teachers, Shing Xiao's parents, and even me, hoping we could talk some sense into him. Xin Yan, my high school desk mate who used to be the biggest shipper of me and Shing Xiao. 6. She called me, sounding like she was about to lose it. What's going on with you and Shing Xiao? How did he turn into the male version of Wang Baochuan over winter break? He must have uprooted every vegetable sprout across the mountains. I couldn't help but laugh. Don't laugh. Did Shing Xiao break up with you? I told Xin Yan about how Shing Xiao confessed to Songzhen. Shing Xiao and I are just childhood neighbors who grew up together. We might look close, but that's it. He's never confessed to me, and I've never said I liked him. Xin Yan, we were never together to begin with, so there's no breakup to talk about. Xin Yan paused for a split second before going completely ballistic. Police. What kind of just a neighbor remembers your period and brings you heating pads and ginger tea? That's no damn neighbor. During stream selection, Shing Xiao was clearly better at sciences, yet he fought like mad with the homeroom teacher to switch to arts for you until you compromised and both went to science class. Name one holiday besides Tomb Sweeping Day when you didn't prepare gifts for him, and he used to reciprocate too. Weren't you two just one confession away from being together? How did things end up like this? I listened quietly as Xin Yan recounted every detail with fondness. Finally, my heart clenched. Isn't a confession all that's missing between us? In my past life, I received that confession by Shing Xiao's hospital bed. Seeing me exhausted and slumped asleep by the hospital bed, Shing Xiao finally couldn't resist ruffling my hair, whispering those words. Calm down, I do like you. Such beautiful promises, all because we were too young. What I believed to be unwavering devotion, in truth, it was merely Shing Xiao's pity or gratitude toward me. I fought tooth and nail to save Shing Xiao's life. Yet he could just as easily take mine over Songzhen's death, so whose love for whom was truly unwavering? Isn't the answer obvious? Xin Yan, it's just Shing Xiao. How could he compare to the college entrance exams? Xin Yan's family is wealthy, so even if she fails the exams, she can still study abroad. That's why she can ship couples without a care in the world, but I'm not. Xin Yan was cheerful by nature and didn't dwell on it. Screw that jerk, once we're in college, you'll have your pick of handsome guys. I laughed it off and changed the subject. I've already wasted too much on a relationship that wasn't worth it. Now is when I take back control of my own life. That evening, our family was having dinner. 7. Suddenly we heard violent shouting and the sound of things being smashed from Shing Xiao's apartment upstairs. My father stood up. He and Xing's dad used to work at the same company. Hearing the commotion, his first instinct was to break up the fight. My mother frowned and told him to wait. My parents exchanged glances before turning their attention to me. I said calmly, "Dad, they're still upset. You should go later." Dad grunted in agreement and sat down without moving. My mother said calmly, "The whole neighborhood's been talking. It turns out Shing Xiao kept sneaking out to help a girl's family sell vegetables. Until someone recognized him and told his parents." My father picked up his chopsticks again. "Oh, so that's what happened. Since it's none of our business, there's no need to get involved. But who would have thought?" Right after dinner, Mrs. Xing showed up at our door with a badly beaten Shing Xiao in tow. My parents were stunned, but couldn't very well turn them away. My mom was pulled onto the sofa by Xing's mother, listening to her tearful complaints. I thought it would just be a simple venting session, but then Xing's mother pointed at Shing Xiao standing ramrod straight in the living room and scolded, "This boy and your daughter Ling Jing were always so close. It's all that vegetable vendor girl's doing. She's the one who convinced him to skip studying during this crucial final year of high school to go sell vegetables with her in the suburbs. After all these years between our families, I only recognize Ling Jing as Xing Xiao's rightful match. That vegetable peddler will never ruin my son's future. It's Xing Xiao who wronged Ling Jing. Bring her here. He must apologize to her properly." Mrs. Xing's words came out all jumbled and contradictory, but the underlying message was clear. She meant to shackle me to Xing Xiao permanently. My mother gently brushed away Aunt Xing's hand. "You're just overwhelmed with grief. Who's this vegetable vendor girl? What's her relationship with Xing Xiao? How did this suddenly become about staying calm?" My dad jumped in and said, "Ling Jing hasn't left the house all winter break, nor has she seen Xing Xiao. Isn't that right?" "Xing Xiao, Xing Xiao," his handsome face cold and arrogant, retorted, "Mom, save your breath. I only like Song Zhen. Ling Jing means nothing to me." My mother chuckled softly. "Mrs. Xing, did you hear what Xiaoxing just said? What does Xiaoxing's crush have to do with Ling Jing? The only connection between them is being classmates and neighbors." My father's tone turned stern too. "You're a senior in high school already, still thinking about relationships. I'm going to have a word with old Xing about this." Mrs. Xing watched as Xing Xiao undermined her efforts while my parents remained unappreciative. She stopped crying abruptly and hurriedly dragged Xing Xiao away. She came behind Mr. Xing's back this time. "If he finds out, there'll be hell to pay at home." My dad even called out when opening the door, "Don't come again next time." After closing the door, he started venting to my mom, "We need to move out of this place ASAP. These neighbors have the audacity to treat my daughter as their backup option, just because we've been living next to each other for years. Do they really think their precious Xing Xiao is the only eligible bachelor in town? What absolute nonsense. The neighborhood in the southern part of town is technically a resale property, but since the previous owner never moved in, it's practically brand new." 8. With all the furniture and appliances already in place, our family basically moved in with just our suitcases. On moving day, my dad hired a moving truck to transport our essential belongings. All our longtime neighbors kept asking why we were moving so abruptly. My dad chuckled and said, "Out with the old, in with the new. We'd have to move eventually anyway. Doing it now saves us some hassle." Mrs. Xing peeked at us moving from her balcony, trying not to be noticed. She didn't dare show her face, afraid of attracting gossip. Then Xing Xiao showed up, his face bruised and swollen from a beating. With a look of concern and anxiety, he asked, "Ling Jing, why did your family move out so suddenly?" I snapped, "To save myself from being someone's backup plan." He quickly explained, "Ling Jing, that was Mom's idea. I never intended." I cut him off. "That day at home, I heard everything. We're through, Xing Xiao." Xing Xiao's lips turned bloodless. My words carried the finality of a judge's gavel. "Xing Xiao, and I should have ended this long ago." As we spoke, I caught sight of a gaunt figure lurking near the neighborhood gate. It was Song Zhen. I deliberately positioned myself to make our silhouettes appear intimately close, as if we were reluctant to part. Shing Xiao was still trying to mend something. Calm down. Can we at least stay friends? I smirked without smiling. Shing Xiao. Don't flatter yourself, I wouldn't even want you as a neighbor, let alone a friend. If it weren't for the hassle of transferring schools during senior year, I wouldn't even want to see you again. From now on, it's just like you said, we're done. I emphasized the word we with deliberate weight. Shing Xiao's face crumpled with heartbreak. Just look at how he reduced our childhood bond of over a decade to mere neighborly acquaintance with a few careless words. When I finally gave him what he wanted and disappeared from his life, he suddenly started getting nostalgic about me. What a joke. Mom called out to me, chill, let's go. Got it, I responded cheerfully, darting toward my parents like a homesick bird returning to its nest. Only after being truly reborn, did I finally understand that ancient verse, the caged bird longs for its forest, as the pond fish yearns for its deep waters, no matter how fierce the storm outside. At least I still have a home to return to. Truck loading completed. 9. Our family got into the private car while waiting for the property management to open the gate. Just as I expected, I saw Songjin running tearfully into Shing Xiao's arms. It was the liveliest time of day in the neighborhood. Mrs. Shing had been watching everything from upstairs the whole time. How could she miss seeing that vegetable peddler girl she so despised, brazenly coming to her doorstep to seduce her son? In no time, Mrs. Shing stormed downstairs, forcibly separated the two, and slapped Songjin across the face. The security guard slowed down even more to watch the commotion. My father frowned and tapped the horn. Shing Xiao turned to look. The rearview mirror reflected his bewildered and ashamed expression. The whole family had to witness such an embarrassing and humiliating scene. As our car drove off, the security guard even gave us a "see you around" hand gesture. My father flushed crimson and muttered, "We've known each other for years. Even they think our family got a raw deal. They deliberately slowed everything down just to make us watch this show." I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Laughter is contagious. Both my mom and dad couldn't help but burst out laughing. It's not very nice, but part of me still wants to say, serves you right. After being reborn, I have two little goals. 10. 1. Wait for Shing Xiao to die. 2. Get the hell out of here. After moving, my parents let me pick my room first. I chose the east-facing one. 11. Waking at dawn to catch the first rays of sunlight. That's what rebirth feels like. The gentle sunlight danced across my book pages like mischievous sprites. I've lived a lifetime in blissful ignorance. Time is far too precious to me, with just months left before the college entrance exams. I asked my parents if they could find me a private tutor. Mom and Dad didn't say much. Deep down, we were all relieved that Shing Xiao's situation hadn't affected me much. They quickly found a suitable tutor through connections. It was Jiangli, a sophomore from a prestigious university. He truly lives up to his name, a born scientist through and through. Even the driest scientific concepts become accessible and profound when he explains them. In my past life, I went through college entrance exam retakes. The national college entrance exam remains, even years later, a regret I can do nothing about. In countless nightmares, I find myself back in the Gaokao exam hall, staring at completely blank science test papers. I'm so nervous I can barely breathe, gripping my pen but unable to write a single word, because in the dream, the exam paper is completely blurred. I can't make out a single question. When I wake up choking back tears, Shing Xiao lying beside me just sneers. After all these years, you're still scared of the college entrance exam. Not a single word of comfort. He's already made it big. Of course he couldn't care less about how I feel, but I can't do that. Only then did I realize, what truly terrified me to the core wasn't the college entrance exam, but that overwhelming sense of powerlessness over my own destiny. When winter break ended, I returned to school. 12. Xin Yan wrapped a concerned arm around mine. "Easy there, you okay?" I was completely in the dark. Xin Yan said, "Haven't you checked the class group?" An anonymous account posted a video on the campus confession wall. I watched the video on the phone Xin Yan handed to me. It showed Songjin going to your place, hugging Shing Xiao, and then getting beaten by Xing's mother. Xin Yan said, "The whole school's buzzing about how you and Shing Xiao were childhood sweethearts. Yet you let that naive freshman Songjin steal him right from under your nose. Some are even saying you filmed that video and posted it from a burner account. Everyone's waiting to see how you'll win Shing Xiao back." I frowned. The ridiculous drama finally splashed onto me. Shing Xiao and I were classmates. I thought running into each other would just be awkward. but trouble has a way of finding me. After class started, the homeroom teacher gave the whole class a stern lecture from the podium. For secure document printing, choose Xiaohu Bot, reliable and hassle-free service you can trust. This is the most critical year of high school. Show some respect for yourselves and others, cut out all that romantic nonsense. I raised my hand to request a seat change. The homeroom teacher glared at me for a moment, then shifted his furious gaze to Shing Xiao sitting in front of me. Eventually, he separated us by banishing us to opposite corners of the classroom. It felt like we were being exiled to the frontier. We both consistently ranked in the class's top 10, with Shing Xiao occasionally topping the entire grade in individual subjects. The teacher could tolerate someone's self-destructive stupidity, but would never allow it to disrupt other students' learning. I told my dad about it, and he immediately brought the neighborhood surveillance footage to the teacher that same day. The footage showed our whole family busy moving out of the neighborhood. By the time Songjin lunged at Shing Xiao and got hit by Xing's mom, our car had already left the neighborhood gates. The camera angles and timeline prove it's impossible for me to have shot that video. My father repeatedly confirmed that Shing Xiao and I were just longtime neighbors. How dare someone with no self-respect drag my daughter into this mess? She's a senior now. Any emotional disturbance could ruin her college entrance exams. Hearing how furious my father was, even the homeroom teacher grew ashamed and promised repeatedly to clear my name. The confession wall video was taken down almost immediately. Songjin's first-year homeroom teacher summoned her parents. 13. Her parents knew they were in the wrong. His idea of discipline was to publicly drag Songjin over and slap her hard across the face. Coincidentally, Shing Xiao happened to be there for a parent meeting that same day. He immediately rushed over and got into an argument with Song's father. It happened during recess, with teachers and students on different floor corridors all witnessing this dramatic scene. Shin Yan couldn't resist either and ran out to watch. I put on my headphones, shutting out that farce from my world. An ambulance arrived on campus. During the scuffle with Mr. Song, Shing Xiao got shoved in the head and immediately collapsed, with unstoppable nosebleeds. Many people were terrified. At the hospital, doctors ran numerous tests before solemnly informing Xing's parents about his condition. The parents were stunned. Their son had been perfectly fine just days earlier when he got into that fight. How could a simple shove lead to a leukemia diagnosis? When the news reached school, many felt like they were living through the pages of some tragic coming-of-age novel. The star-crossed lovers from vastly different worlds were cruelly kept apart by those around them, yet they loved recklessly, defying their parents and sacrificing college entrance exams. Now Shing Xiao's cancer diagnosis casts a heartbreaking yet poignant glow over their youthful romance. Shin Yan couldn't help but feel utterly dejected. Wait, wasn't it Shing Xiao who wronged you last week? With Songjin playing the innocent homewrecker, how did this suddenly turn into some tragic teenage romance? I smiled and ruffled Shin Yan's hair. Focus on your studies. Even soap operas would reject this cliché melodrama. Why bother watching it? Shin Yan snapped impatiently. Damn right. I'd rather read books than watch those trashy scumbags. Ha, this story no longer needs me, the lovesick, venomous supporting character. The world is crueler than even a supporting character like me. Just wait and see. Shing Xiao couldn't come to school due to illness. He was inevitably going to miss this year's college entrance exams too. 14. His classmates all felt sorry for him, visiting him in small groups on their own initiative, everyone but me. In the early stages of treatment, Shing Xiao sat on the hospital bed holding Songjin's hand, beaming with joy. Go ahead and envy me. I found a love more precious than life itself. This line became legendary for a time. Mutual friends cautiously asked me, are you really not going to visit? I'd just wave my textbook or test papers in the air. There are more important things than visiting the sick. Not that they could really say anything about it. They had just as many books to read and exams to prepare for as I did. Cruel, heartless. Shing Xiao and I had that ambiguous relationship for years. Most people assumed we were a couple, yet he never bothered to clarify. But when Songjin entered his life, suddenly he couldn't explain things fast enough. Am I some kind of personal belonging to him? Does he think I'll come running whenever he snaps his fingers? His mistakes and illnesses are no excuse to drag me into this. Whenever Shin Yan overheard those whispering behind her back, she'd give them a piece of her mind. Didn't Shing Xiao find a love more precious than life itself? If they're so perfect together, why bother analyzing it coldly? I accidentally converted her from a casual shipper to a devoted fan. Over time, people stopped paying attention to me. Most people following this incident were just waiting to see how Songjin would react. From the very beginning, Songjin, now the center of scandalous rumors, started frequently taking leaves and arriving late. No need to ask, she'd inevitably respond with red-rimmed eyes, murmuring pitifully, 15, Shing Xiao's in the hospital, I need to see him. Upon hearing this, Shin Yan couldn't help rolling her eyes. Didn't you say it's just the early stage? No need for that over-the-top dying act. Harsh words, but music to my ears. But I wouldn't let her ramble on, just flipped through more test papers for her to practice. Shin Yan's rock-bottom grades showed no improvement throughout high school, yet her recent mock exam scores jumped over 100 points. When she got the test paper, her expression mirrored the homeroom teacher's disbelief. She finally couldn't help but let out a whoop of joy. Calm down, is this score real? Did I actually earn this? First time in my life I've scored this high without cheating. The homeroom teacher didn't press her about the cheating allegations either. With Shin Yan's personality and family background, cheating would be utterly beneath her. Our homeroom teacher grinned at the class and said, look, until the final moment of the college entrance exam, anything's possible, go for it, boys and girls. Who says teenage years are wasted without romance? Cramming for exams can be just as thrilling. The whole class burst into laughter. Yeah. Everyone felt tremendously motivated and inspired by the success. Shin Yan became obsessed with studying. When she puts her mind to it, she only sleeps 3 hours a day. No more colored contacts, no more eyeliner, just washing my face with plain water. My skin's breaking out from late nights, but I can't even bother anymore, she said to me. This feeling of fulfillment is amazing, like if I just push a little harder, I might actually grasp something real. My nose tingled as I let out a bitter chuckle. That's what it feels like to seize control of your own destiny, the opportunity I'd lost in my past life. Halfway through the semester, Songjin had accumulated far too many unexcused absences. The school could sympathize with Shing Xiao's illness, but couldn't indefinitely tolerate his puppy love with Songjin. 16. This had severely damaged the school's reputation. They advised Songjin's parents to simply have her take a leave of absence. Songjin's parents had limited means. Supporting their child's education was no easy feat. In the end, their daughter dropped out of school just to become an unpaid caregiver at someone else's sickbed. They were heartbroken. What hurt them most was the attitude of Shing's parents toward them. It was clearly their own daughter who sacrificed her education for Shing Xiao. The Shing family simply looked down on them, as if their whole clan was trying to leech off the Shins. Could Shing Xiao and Songjin's relationship really remain unshaken under such circumstances? The whole world isn't going to make way for their dramatic love story. While building my own future, I'm waiting to see how their doomed romance plays out. Then, during a class break, Songjin came running to find me. She wanted me to visit Shing Xiao at the hospital. I'm not a doctor. What good would visiting do when I can't cure his cancer? Am I supposed to comfort him with years of neighborly affection when you're the love he values more than life itself? 17. Or tell me, what exactly should I say or do when I go there to satisfy both you and him? Songjin stood utterly speechless, her eyes reddened as if I'd subjected her to unbearable humiliation. With Shing Xiao around, she could win without lifting a finger, but now they were standing outside a senior year classroom. Her notorious reputation made even standing at the doorway seem like a provocation. Shin Yan pushed through the crowd, shouting, "What are you doing? Staring at her won't help, hit the books instead." The homeroom teacher trailing behind her scrutinized Songjin with a stern frown. "You're a freshman, right? What brings you to the senior year hallway?" Songjin replied timidly, "I'm here to see Ling Jing." The homeroom teacher wore a knowing smirk. Aren't you Shing Xiao's little girlfriend? Shouldn't you be keeping him company at the hospital right now?" Songjin's pitiful face flushed and paled in rapid succession. The entire school knew about their earth-shattering, teenage life-or-death romance. What's there for her to deny? I wanted to ask Ling Jing to visit Shing Xiao at the hospital, but the homeroom teacher said, "Shing Xiao is also my student, and I've been keeping tabs on his condition. With his recent chemotherapy, he's in terrible pain and has lost all his hair. In this state, would our visit really be appropriate?" Songjin was trying to emotionally manipulate people. The teacher effortlessly deflected it with minimal effort. "I just found it ridiculous. Why did she think others were too stupid to see through her little tricks? Did you get too much satisfaction from Shing Xiao?" Seeing her relentless persistence, Shin Yan spoke up, "Class advisor, how about we visit Shing Xiao as student representatives this afternoon? God knows what the teacher was thinking, he agreed without hesitation. Songjin's eyes widened in disbelief. Clearly, this outcome caught everyone off guard. Most people just want front row seats to the drama. Humph. My life was never meant to be entertainment. They can be the audience, but I reserve the right to walk off stage. But since Song's so fond of performing, let her put on her little show. Shing Xiao's condition has taken a bad turn. Dark circles hollowed his eyes. His cheeks were sunken, he'd wasted away to a walking skeleton. 18. Xing Yan looked at him like she'd seen a ghost. I've seen him like this in a past life. Back then, my heart was breaking. Turning away, I couldn't hold back the tears. Now, Xing Xiao lies listlessly in bed, a woolen cap covering his thinning hair. His condition still causes occasional dizziness and vomiting. Xing's mother was cleaning up his vomit. The ward reeked of a nauseating stench. Xing Yan couldn't take it anymore and rushed to the restroom. Hearing the noise, Mom Xing started cursing without even turning around. You little bitch Songzhen, where the hell did you? The homeroom teacher and I turned to look, but Songzhen had already vanished. Mom Xing froze on the spot. His movements became visibly flustered, especially after spotting me. Stay calm, it's you. Xing Xiao struggled to sit up upon hearing my name. His mother moved to support him, but he shook her off. He wordlessly struggled to sit up. When he saw me, a deliberate smile surfaced on his pallid, sickly face. He was acting too, playing the part of a normal Xing Xiao. He's such a proud man, how could he possibly want to see me now and let his pride be trampled? I heard Xing's mother sniffle before speaking to him. Xing Xiao, are you alright? Songjin sent us to check on you, hoping to give you some encouragement. The college entrance exams are coming up. We really hope you recover soon so we can face this make or break challenge together. Even the simplest, most sincere words felt like cruel mockery to Xing Xiao in his current state. The homeroom teacher and Xing's mother stepped aside to talk privately. A storm of emotions swirled in Xing Xiao's eyes. Did Songjin send you? Yes, she said you missed seeing your teachers and classmates. I should tell him about Songjin's thoughtful little arrangement. Xing Xiao violently shoved aside the bedside table before collapsing back onto the hospital bed, his body convulsing uncontrollably. The homeroom teacher urgently summoned doctors and nurses. Behind the ward's glass door, Xing's mother sobbed hysterically while the teacher let out a heavy sigh. I gave Xing's mother a comforting pat on the shoulder and handed her a tissue packet. Aunt Xing, Xing Xiao is so strong. He'll definitely pull through for Songjin's sake. Mrs. Xing looked up. Her face a picture of heartbreak. Songjin and Xing Xiao broke up. When you think about it, it was actually quite straightforward. 19. Just like their love that sprang from nowhere. 20. Quick to ignite, quicker to fade. Through the long days of caregiving, Songjin had lost sight of love's true form. She was still just a student. After all, she had to constantly take leave from work, playing nursemaid to Xing Xiao in the hospital, all the while enduring Xing's mother's curses, her own parents' complaints, and even criticism from teachers and classmates at school. She couldn't take it anymore. It's not like I gave you leukemia. Why does everyone act like this is my fault? Xing Xiao looked at her as if she were a stranger. Then why did you send Lin Jing to see me? Songjin froze for a moment before retorting defiantly. You grew up together. How could I not know you have feelings for her too? Xing Xiao froze in shock. After all these years together day and night, his feelings for me were truly special. But ever since Songjin appeared, he became completely captivated by her. Songjin was like a wild rose blooming in untamed wilderness, radiating far more vitality than a rule-following bookworm like me. Poverty never constrained Songjin, it only made her authenticity shine brighter. Their first meeting happened when a child stumbled before a rich kid's car on the street. It was Songjin who rushed forward, shielding the child while standing her ground against the entitled heir. Back then, Songjin radiated courage and resilience, glowing with an indomitable spirit. Xing Xiao found himself utterly captivated. That's why he fell for Songjin. For her, he'd defy his family and quarrel with his parents. Why couldn't Songjin love him with equal conviction? How could she say she's tired after just a few months? Songjin, even if you pity me, this isn't the time to say. Songjin interrupted Xing Xiao. I'm miserable enough already, why should I pity you? I'm not some emotionless statue. To continue her education and escape public scrutiny, Songjin abruptly transferred to a school in another city. Her parents were migrant workers anyway. One city was as good as another for making a living. 21. The Song family left without even a word to the Xings. The Xings would later go searching for Songjin. Songjin's homeroom teacher relayed that she had broken up with Xing Xiao. and asked them not to bother her anymore. Xing's parents were absolutely furious, but what right did they have to blame Song Zhen? Frankly speaking, this teenage romance seemed more like Shing Xiao holding Song Zhen back. Many people shared this view, including Song Zhen's homeroom teacher. The passionate life-or-death romance of youth ultimately withered away within months. Both teachers and students at school were preoccupied. They were consumed by their own lives, heard about it, just laughed it off. My parents got wind of this, they just sighed behind my back and left it at that. Humph, what can a mere few months of puppy love possibly withstand in the face of life and death? Only in my past life was I foolish enough to believe Shing Xiao and I were childhood sweethearts of over a decade, making me reluctant to abandon him. I went through hell and back with Shing Xiao once. In the end, the moment Song Zhen appeared, all our feelings turned to ashes. The favored ones always take love for granted. I've nursed the critically ill Shing Xiao. The ordeal was unbearable both mentally and physically. That's why I knew all along the teenage Song Zhen would never last, but I just had to watch their love get crushed to pieces by reality. I also wanted to see Shing Xiao's miserable state, hovering between life and death. Shing Xiao didn't disappoint me, as expected. He plunged headlong into reminiscing about Song Zhen, 22. Xing's parents went to great lengths to reignite his will to live and convince him to continue treatment. I stopped asking about Shing Xiao and Song Zhen's affairs. With Jiang Li's help, my science grades improved steadily, finally making up for my previous weaknesses. That June, I walked into the Gaokao examination hall. While waiting for the results, Xin Yan and I embarked on a whirlwind tour, hitting 3 cities in 7 days, while marveling at our country's magnificent landscapes. I stumbled upon an unexpected delight. The college entrance exam results came out soon after. I got accepted into the prestigious 211 university I'd always dreamed of. Xin Yan managed to get into a second-tier university through last-minute efforts. This result might seem insignificant to others, but for Xin Yan's parents, it was earth-shattering good news. Xin Yan turned down the study abroad plan, telling her parents she'd retake the exams to get into the same university as me next year. Her parents fully supported her decision. It wasn't until my freshman year began that I heard about Shing Xiao again from Xin Yan. He's recovered and came back to repeat the year, but whether it's from chemo or heartbreak, his grades have really taken a nosedive. 23. Oh, really? Sensing my disinterest, Xin Yan casually probed for some gossip. How's it going with Jiang Li? I chuckled softly as Jiang Li across the street had already bought me bubble tea. He's still chasing after me. A teacher-student romance with an age gap, ooh, so forbidden and unconventional. Xin Yan is forever shipping me and her favorite CP. Jiang Li's university was in the same city as mine. Early in freshman year, he started visiting often, taking me to meals, exploring this ancient capital, soaking in all its cultural flavors. I've lived 2 lifetimes after all, brief though they've been. The subtle affections between grown men and women are quite transparent. Jiang Li sported a neat, close-cropped haircut, tall, handsome, and considerate to a fault, though he insists on treating me like a child, occasionally tapping my forehead. When he confessed to me, I pondered for ages but still couldn't figure out when he'd started liking me. Jiang Li held my hand as we strolled down the tree-lined campus avenue. Autumn leaves crunching beneath our feet. Actually, we met as kids. I'm 2 years older. We lived in the same staff housing complex. I used to play Eagle Catches Chicks with your kindergarten group. Then my family moved away when I started elementary school. I vaguely remember such an older brother, but that feels like ancient history now. I remember many families moving out of our neighborhood. Shing Xiao was the only one I was really close to. We had the strongest bond. I've always known about you. When I heard your family needed a tutor, I volunteered immediately, but you didn't recognize me and kept calling me teacher this and teacher that. No wonder you asked me to call you brother. Jiang Li naturally pulled me into a hug, patting my hand as he said. I smiled. Now we're not mismatched in seniority anymore. We could almost pass as childhood sweethearts. Childhood sweethearts. Who isn't childhood sweethearts with someone these days? 24, yeah. Coming home for Lunar New Year during freshman year, Jiang Li paid us a New Year's visit right after the holiday began. My parents welcomed him in with smiles, then exchanged knowing glances, a silent understanding of mutual satisfaction. I asked Jiang Li, what brings you here? Jiang Li scratched his head. New Year's greetings, and to check on you. The corners of my mouth curled into a smile. Jiang Li added, there's something I'd like to discuss with you both. What is it? Well, about parental arrangements. Just as I was about to tease Jiangli, the doorbell rang. My dad opened the door with a peculiar expression. The next moment, Shing Xiao walked in. He happened to see me peeling an orange for Jiangli. His parents behind him saw it too. The expressions on that family of three were quite a sight. I suspect they came to my place mainly to seek reconciliation, so I made up an excuse and left with Jiangli. As my father closed the door, he deliberately said something to the Shing family inside. Jiangli is Lin Jing's boyfriend, who came all the way to visit us during the New Year holidays. Jiangli walked faster than me, couldn't tell if he heard it or not. With most places packed during the holidays, Jiangli and I headed to Xinyan's villa instead. Xinyan had the entire floor to herself. No matter how many guests visited, she'd retreat upstairs claiming to study, and nobody dared disturb her. Her crescent moon eyes never left Jiangli, sparkling with amusement. "So you're Professor Jiang." After barely exchanging 2 sentences, Jiangli stepped out to the balcony for some air. "I can tell, he's practically steaming," Xinyan whispered, "miles better than Shing Xiao." "Honestly, I mentioned Shing Xiao's family coming over to my place," Xinyan sneered. "Back when he fell for someone else, he claimed you were just neighbors. Now you're not even that. What's he doing at your place?" "Like I care what he's after. Shing Xiao could only hurt me because I used to love him. I still wish he were dead. Pity the illness didn't finish him off," Xinyan continued. "Ever since Shing Xiao came back, he's been acting really odd. He couldn't keep up with schoolwork anymore and just wanted to go into business with his dad. Even the homeroom teacher tried talking him out of it several times. With his academic foundation, he clearly had good chances of getting into a top-tier university." A sudden thought occurred to me. That suspicion was soon confirmed. 25. After Jiangli walked me home, I unexpectedly ran into Shing Xiao in the hallway. Shing Xiao fixed me with an intense stare. "Calm down, you're back too, aren't you?" Shing Xiao had truly returned. That look in his eyes was both familiar and alien, like a weathered desert traveler yearning for an oasis. I steadied myself. "This is my doorstep. What's wrong with me coming home?" Shing Xiao gave a wistful smile. "Calm down. I've studied micro-expressions. You can't fool me. We know each other too well." Shing Xiao grabbed my arm. "Calm down. I remember everything now. In this lifetime, Songjin actually abandoned me. I've suffered the consequences of my own ingratitude. Stay calm. The one person I can never let go is actually you. I'm absolutely terrified. How could I not be? That's the murderer who pushed me off the building in my past life." Seizing the chance, I broke free and sprinted desperately toward my doorstep. The door swung open instantly, flooding the area with warm household light. Turned out my mom had heard the commotion and come out. "Shing Xiao, what are you trying to do?" I dodged to the side. My father came out too. "Today we've made it perfectly clear to your parents, there's absolutely no future between you and Lingjing. Why are you still here?" Shing Xiao said nothing, just gazed at me with heartrending sorrow. I couldn't bear to look at him anymore. Shing Xiao left. His parents had dragged him away by force. My father cast aside years of friendship and issued a harsh ultimatum. "If Shing Xiao dares set foot in our neighborhood again, I'll have him arrested on the spot." After all the effort Shing's parents put into getting him back, they'd never risk tarnishing his record. He even gave Shing Xiao a few hard smacks right in front of my parents to vent his anger. Choose Little Tiger bought for secure document protection and book searching, reliable, stable, and hassle-free. My dad mercilessly told them to get lost. 26. I reckon Shing Xiao must have returned last year while still undergoing treatment, but why would he come back? After his return, why didn't he go straight to find Songjin? If he hates me so much for supposedly causing Songjin's death, why does he still call me the one he can't let go of? No amount of unanswered questions could outweigh my fear of him. I've finally built a new life, found new love, and got a fresh start. If he won't let me go, am I going to lose everything? No, I absolutely refuse. 27. Shing Xiao kept texting me, asking to meet up and talk. What's left for us to discuss? Shing Xiao seemed to read my mind. What I owe you, I'll repay eventually. I glanced at it, still no reply. My life. How could he ever repay that? Late at night, in that hazy state between sleep and wakefulness, I felt transported back to my past life. It was a meticulously chosen Western restaurant where Shing Xiao, without warning, pulled out a ring, knelt on one knee, and proposed to me in front of everyone. That was the outcome I'd been desperately waiting for all these years. How could I possibly say no? After accepting Shing Xiao's proposal, I cried so hard my makeup ran, forcing me to fix it in the restroom. only to accidentally overhear Shing Xiao's conversation with someone else. Among the guests was a renowned physician recently recruited from abroad by Shing Xiao's hospital. Shing Xiao was vying for a spot in a hospital project and needed this doctor's endorsement. That's why he chose this restaurant frequented by the doctor to stage his marriage proposal, all to impress upon the physician that Shing Xiao was a responsible and level-headed man. The dream I've waited for all these years. It's finally come true. Everything was driven by self-interest. Does Shing Xiao really love me? In my past life, I was just fooling myself. At least he's willing to marry me and walk with me into the next chapter of life. But now, I'm with Jiangli. The love I receive now is truly different from the one-sided devotion of my past life. I know what true mutual love really means. 28. I agreed to meet Shing Xiao. He wants redemption, and I'm giving him the chance. But on one condition, it has to be in another city. I've got cousins in that city who'll be shadowing us discreetly. They won't let me get shortchanged. It was one of those neon-lit nightclubs buzzing with energy. The long-lost Songjin wore a skimpy mini dress, moving to the sultry beats of a K-pop routine on the dance floor. The lace trim of her lingerie peeked through with every move, drawing wolf whistles and cheers from the men around. After her performance, she flitted across the venue like a butterfly before settling onto the lap of a rich heir in the VIP booth. The wealthy playboy became her sugar daddy. She dropped out of school and quit selling vegetables. Now she's a bona fide kept woman, a pampered little rose. Shing Xiao watched the scene with cold detachment. He recognized that spoiled rich kid, the same one who'd quarreled with Songjin on the street before. Songjin's radiant charm didn't just captivate Shing Xiao. It ensnared that wealthy playboy too. Perhaps Songjin's love for Shing Xiao had been genuine at first. When exactly did it turn fake? I really wouldn't know. Shing Xiao and I know each other far too well. Well enough that I know exactly what to do. Could easily make him feel like being pierced by 1,000 arrows. Having lived 2 lifetimes, Shing Xiao still couldn't keep his composure. He stepped forward with a liquor bottle in hand. Yet the bottle struck Songjin's face. 29. Before the police took Shing Xiao away, he said to me, in our past life, Songjin didn't commit suicide because of depression. She was pregnant and needed someone to be the father of her child. When the rich kid found out, he forced her to take the pills and staged the suicide scene. By the time I learned the truth, it was too late. I thought in this life we could start over. But you came back too. You fear me, and you hate me. I can see it in your eyes. No matter what happens in this lifetime, there's no future for us. Calm down. The debt I owe you, I'll repay with the rest of my life. I'm sorry. Turns out Shing Xiao wasn't as clever as I'd imagined. As a psychiatrist, he actually fell for Songjin's act so easily. I really thought he truly loved Songjin. That's why he never minded her past or how she disappeared without a word back then. Never expected it to turn out like this, when it comes down to it. That unattainable little rose from our youth can be dangerously alluring. Tragically, Songjin was disfigured. The rich kid has money, but that doesn't mean he's willing to pay for Songjin's treatment. Song's parents are dead set on making Shing Xiao serve time. Very well, they never deserved a bright future to begin with. Mr. and Mrs. Shing's hair turned white overnight, but it wasn't long before they got divorced. My dad said, old Shing has another family outside, with a child already 7 or 8 years old. The only reason we didn't divorce was because we valued Shing Xiao so much. And just when Shing Xiao finally recovered, he had to go and do something this stupid. My mom also said, Shing's mother was no saint either. To secure her future, she hired a young maid from the countryside to care for Shing Xiao, who ended up pregnant. After Shing Xiao recovered and left the hospital, his mother rushed back to force the maid into an abortion. After Shing Xiao got arrested, the maid's impoverished family caused a scene at our old neighborhood, and that's how the scandal blew up. In my past life as Shing Xiao's fiancé, I'd been completely in the dark about all this. No wonder Shing Xiao lashed out at Songjin with such extreme, desperate fury. It must have been sheer despair that led to this. His family had always been plagued by too many unspeakable truths. Given a second chance at life, Shing Xiao lost both the career he took pride in and the fame that once came effortlessly. Not only did his chronic illness relapse, but he also had to deal with that absurd, laughable mess of a family. How did he endure that period of cancer treatment? Was it because of the maid's unborn child? No amount of personal struggles can justify Shing Xiao's despicable character. In this lifetime, with me and Songjin gone from his sickbed, there's still that replacement made by his side. Every single one could be his pawn. Humph. Shing Xiao isn't worthy of my love, he's even less deserving of loving me. 30. Another 3 years had passed. I was about to graduate as a senior, while Jiangli had already graduated and landed a job at a major tech company in Beijing. Jiangli called to check in with me. I've rented a place for us near your grad school. The neighborhood's full of charming hutongs and historic sites. You'll have the whole area to explore. My heart swelled with warmth. From studies to work, even down to food and fun, he's thought of everything for me. Jiangli, why are you so good to me? Jiangli chuckled wryly. You've been good to me too, always giving me new scarves and gloves every year. Even Xin Yan chimed in. Compared to how he used to be all take and no give, Jiangli's practically worshipping you now. Then they added with a tinge of jealousy, even my boyfriend can't do that. Ouch, calm down. I want new scarves and gloves too. I need to go back to my hometown to get some materials for the postgraduate entrance exam. I got news about Shing Xiao from my parents. He passed away, the leukemia had relapsed. Not even his closest family was by his side this time. I'd been given a fresh start in life, reborn only to face second and third rounds of brutal chemotherapy, his reputation ruined, betrayed by his beloved and abandoned by both parents. What a waste to die now. Humph, such a pity, if only his suffering could have been worse. 31. Shing Xiao's suicide note took over half a year to finally reach my family from his mother's hands. My parents believe that a dying man's words are truly sincere. I examined the envelope of the suicide note. It bore signs of having been opened and resealed. After repeating a year, I ended up at a university and major that weren't my first choice. I'm so worthless. I smiled and accepted it right in front of them. Went downstairs and tossed it into the nearest trash can. Xin Yan was waiting at the neighborhood gate in her new car, ready to take me to Hadaleo for hot pot. Chill, I kinda want to see that cute waiter do the subject 3 dance later. Do you think Brother Jiangli would mind? I'm in a great mood. Not at all. Here's something to make you even happier. Dinner's on me tonight. Xin Yan gasped in amazement. What's the special occasion today? Hold your horses. Did you win the lottery? I said with a laugh. A lifelong dream finally came true. The best is yet to come. 32. After rebirth, I have 2 modest goals. 1. Wait for Shing Xiao to die. 2. Make sure he dies far away. Only after all these years can such an ending be called truly fulfilling. Beyond the window, sunshine bathed the world in warmth while birds sang amidst fragrant blossoms. In this life, I'm blessed with family, cherished friends, and a beloved partner. Together with them, I'll embark on life's next grand adventure. Story 2. Xin Yanxi grew up together with my elder sister as childhood sweethearts. Later, when my family fell from grace, he proposed to marry me instead. Everyone said that I was just a substitute for my deceased elder sister. After hearing it so many times, I really started to believe it myself, until he died trying to save me. In this new life, I heard the remarks about me being a substitute again, but this time, along with those remarks, there was another voice as well. Spreading rumors is easy, but refuting them takes so much effort. I've said it 800 times that I've never liked Wenbei at all. I'm already annoyed that I can't catch up with my wife, and now you guys are causing trouble. It's been a year since we got married. When will my wife be willing to scold me a few more times? Me, I never knew that Xin Yanxi could be so talkative. I was standing in the banquet hall, holding his arm, in one ear. There were the idle gossip and whispers from the people around that drifted in from time to time. In the other ear, there was all of Xin Yanxi's endless muttering. What else do I need to do to clarify this? Every time someone asks me who I really like, I say it's Wen Nan. We're not twins. We don't look alike at all. How could she be a substitute? I wonder which genius came up with this rumor. Have they read too many romance novels? If they have the guts, they should come and say it to my face. Ugh. I'm really fed up. I already felt guilty about taking advantage of the Wen family's misfortune to get Wen Nan to marry me. Normally, I don't even dare to talk to her too much, for fear that she'll be annoyed with me and want to divorce me. But these people are still secretly causing trouble for me. I really want to acquire all of them. I was still immersed in the confusion of suddenly being able to hear Xin Yanxi's inner thoughts. But when I heard this sentence, I couldn't help it and looked at him in shock. Wait, the reason he's been so cold and distant towards me usually is that he doesn't dare to talk to me too much. I really thought it was because he was afraid that if I talked too much, I wouldn't be like my elder sister anymore. I accidentally stared at him a bit absent-mindedly. Xin Yanxi's inner muttering suddenly stopped. My wife is looking at me. Isn't she angry? Forget about the acquisition. I might as well just kill them all. He slightly tilted his head and looked at me. He still had that cold and distant expression. Are you tired? If you don't want to stay, we can go back first. I let out an ah and nodded subconsciously. Shing Xiao immediately perfunctorily said a few words to the people beside him who were trying to curry favor. Then he made an excuse and took me away. In the car on the way home, Shing Xiao was resting with his eyes closed. I propped my head up and looked outside the car. Still feeling that everything was not real, I opened my eyes this morning and found that I had been reborn. I was reborn just 1 year after I married Shing Xiao. In my previous life, on the day of our 3rd wedding anniversary, we were framed and set up. Shing Xiao took 2 bullets in order to save me. He dragged his injured body and hid me in a crevice, while he went alone to lead away those kidnappers, and not long before that, he had just proposed a divorce to me. Going further back, we hadn't seen each other for almost a year. Shing Xiao risked his life, but I still didn't survive either. I was found by the kidnappers and taken to the side of Shing Xiao's body. In the end, I died with him. When I just woke up this morning, I thought I had just had a very long dream. However, the pain of being on the verge of death was still imprinted in my soul. It made it impossible for me to deceive myself no matter what, so I could only accept this fact that I had been reborn. I spent a whole day digesting the news of my rebirth, and in the evening, I was shocked by Shing Xiao's inner thoughts again. Thinking of the words I heard at the banquet just now, I couldn't help but turn my gaze to Shing Xiao. I remember that in the first 2 years of our marriage in my previous life, our relationship was actually not bad, although we weren't particularly close. We also weren't as incompatible as the outside world rumored, to put it bluntly. Just as Shing Xiao said in his inner thoughts, he rarely talked to me, but he would quietly do some things for me behind the scenes. But at that time, I had heard too many rumors about being a substitute, so in my heart, I defaulted that everything he did was to make up for the regrets of Wenbei. When my family had an accident back then, I was the only one who survived. It was Shing Xiao who helped me when I was at my most helpless, so I decided to repay him, no matter what he wanted. I once tried to imitate Wenbei's words and deeds and deliberately learned her dressing style. Shing Xiao noticed and seriously stopped me. He said, I don't like Wenbei, just be Wen Nan. So I stopped imitating Wenbei and just showed a kind of docile obedience towards Shing Xiao. But the more docile and obedient I was, the more obscure and difficult to discern his gaze became when he looked at me. Later, he appeared in front of me less and less often, until I didn't see him for a year. And finally he proposed a divorce to me. People really see things very differently from different perspectives. In my previous life, I always thought that he had come to his senses, got tired of me, and decided to stay away from me because he knew that I could never become Wenbei after all. But now it seems that things are not so simple, and those robbers, I must solve them as early as possible in this life. For a moment, all kinds of messy information filled my mind. Before I could figure anything out, Shing Xiao's inner thoughts forcefully interrupted again. Why has Nan been staring at me? Is there something on my face? I should have listened to the styling team and made myself look more refined tonight. What if I'm so ugly that I scare her? No, I'd better hide. Next time, I'll definitely not be too lazy and will take the trouble to do my styling properly. As soon as his words fell, I watched as he turned his head to the other side. If I couldn't hear his inner thoughts, I would definitely think that he was disgusted with me. I was both angry and amused. I originally didn't want to pay attention to him, but by chance, I glanced and saw that he was rubbing his fingers. I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, after he stuffed me into the crevice to hide, he quickly bent down and kissed me. I was so tired and scared at that time that I was slow to respond to his comforting kiss for a long time. However, because of our position, I happened to be able to see his hand in front of him, which seemed to be rubbing his fingers unconsciously. This seemed to be a little gesture he would do when he was nervous. Thinking of the way he forced a smile at me with blood all over his body in my previous life, my heart suddenly softened. I don't know why, but the thought of ignoring him that I originally had just couldn't hold up anymore. I sighed resignedly in my heart. After a little thought, I suddenly said, Shing Xiao, look at me. Shing Xiao's body visibly stiffened for a moment. He slowly turned his head, and his delicate face was full of coldness and stiffness that kept people at a distance. But now when I look at him, I always feel that there seems to be an imperceptible tension hidden under his expressionless face. His mental activities also confirmed my feeling. My goodness, did Nan just order me? I haven't heard her speak to me in this tone since we were in university. I really want to cry. What should I do? Will Nan Nan believe me if I say that the wind got into my eyes? No, why did she suddenly call me like this? Isn't she thinking of doing something stupid, or is she going to divorce me? When Shin Yancy thought of the last part, I clearly saw his pupils contract. I couldn't help but chuckle. I really didn't expect that Shin Yancy had so many thoughts in his heart. It was really unexpected, and it was as if I was just starting to get to know him again. Shin Yancy didn't say anything and just kept looking at me quietly. I ignored those noisy and anxious thoughts in his heart, followed my memories, and slowly said word by word, Shin Yancy. What's the point of you paying to keep a styling team? I casually found an excuse and started trying to regain the feeling of being Nan. Don't you remember when President Chen was seized upon by his opponent regarding his dressing issue and was said to be disrespectful to the Cooperative Party? My tone wasn't very polite, and these were words that a gentle and polite person like Wenbei would definitely not say. Didn't I tell you that when you're out, your image is the image of the company? Don't think I didn't notice how perfunctory you were today. I watched as Shin Yancy couldn't help it. His eyes slowly widened, and his body involuntarily sat up a little straighter. I curled the corners of my mouth, and there was an indescribable sense of relief in my heart. I haven't been Nan for a long time, but it feels really good to be Nan again. Shin Yancy was so shocked that even his inner thoughts went silent. I didn't care either. I crossed my arms, casually leaned back on the chair, and raised my eyebrows to look at him. You should reflect on this situation when you go back today, and I'm tired. You'd better take good care of me tonight. I saw that Shin Yancy's expression had completely turned into a daze. He was looking at me as if he had been stunned. Just then, the driver drove the car to the doorstep. I opened the car door. Before getting out, I suddenly turned around and squinted my eyes at him with a smile. If you don't take good care of me, I'll beat you to death tomorrow. After saying that, I turned around and got out of the car without hesitation. I had just taken 2 steps when there was a thud sound from behind, and then came Shin Yancy's exclamation. Goodness, where have you taken me? Is this heaven? After I entered the house, I first went to remove my makeup and change my clothes. When I went back to the living room again, Shin Yancy was still standing at the door. He was fumbling with his tie, not knowing whether to untie it or not, with his eyes slightly lowered. Just looking at his appearance, it seemed as if he was pondering some big business deal worth billions. He had a kind of serious and mature charm. If you just looked at his appearance, what's wrong with Nan Nan today? What does she want me to do? It doesn't matter if she beats me to death. But it's been more than a year since the Wen family's accident, and this is the first time I've seen her so relaxed like today. If I spoil her mood because of me, I might as well just end my own life. No, even if I die, I have to find the source of that substitute rumor and die with him. I stood in the middle of the living room, listening to Shin Yancy's inner thoughts with great interest. It was interesting, but I was also afraid that if he kept thinking like this, he would really end his own life with the tie. So after listening for a while, I still walked over. What's wrong? Is the tie sticky? You've been trying to untie it for 20 minutes. I deliberately lightened my steps, and Shin Yancy was indeed so scared that his whole body stiffened. He almost reflexively tore off the tie. Then he started hanging up his clothes as if nothing had happened and said indifferently, I'm thinking about something. I just watched him pretend. It wasn't until there were nervous voices in his heart that I hooked the corners of my mouth with a bit of malicious pleasure. I'm hungry. Can you make me something to eat? I'll call someone to deliver it. As he said that, he was about to pick up his phone. I quickly stopped him. It's not that troublesome. You can just cook me a bowl of noodles. I curved my eyebrows and eyes. Of course, if it tastes too bad, you don't have to come back to the room tonight. After saying that, regardless of Shin Yancy's slightly stunned gaze, I turned around and went back upstairs. I stood at the door of the study, hesitated for a moment, and then pushed the door open. In my previous life, I always regarded myself as an outsider and cautiously and restrainedly maintained a distance from Shin Yancy, even though Shin Yancy had said that in this house, there was no place I couldn't go and nothing I couldn't touch. But I still stubbornly stuck to my bottom line. During the 3 years of our married life, I only used things that I bought with my own money, and I didn't enter any room on the 2nd floor except the bedroom, especially a place with strong privacy like the study. I wouldn't even take an extra look at it. There was only one time when I entered his study, and then I saw, after a little thought, I took out a pink diary from a pile of thick reference books according to my memory. This was Wenbei's diary. In my previous life, I firmly believed in that substitute rumor because I accidentally saw this diary. A man keeping the diary of another deceased woman, it's really hard not to associate it with feelings, but now I think things might not be so simple, because at the last moment of my previous life before I died, I vaguely seemed to hear those kidnappers mention words like that little girl from the Wen family and where is she hidden. I'm sure that that little girl from the Wen family didn't refer to me. Could it be that Wen Bei's death wasn't an accident? I stared at the diary in my hand, a bit lost in thought. In fact, as soon as I found out that I could hear Shen Yanxi's inner thoughts and confirmed that he really didn't like Wen Bei, I thought of this diary. If Shen Yanxi didn't like Wen Bei, then it was really strange for him to keep Wen Bei's diary. I had an intuition that there might be something else recorded in this diary. Just as I was still hesitating whether to try to unlock the password, suddenly, there were footsteps in the corridor outside the study. Almost instinctively, I stuffed the diary back in its place and randomly took out a book and opened a page. Shen Yanxi walked to the door and knocked, still in that flat tone. The noodles are ready, come and eat. I casually hummed, and endured my guilty conscience as I stuffed the book away casually. I was just about to say something to cover up my guilty conscience, but the moment I turned my head, I accidentally met Shen Yanxi's eyes. His gaze was as calm and peaceful as ever, looking deeper. It seemed to contain infinite tolerance, just as he said, in this house, there was no place I couldn't go and nothing I couldn't touch. The heart that had just sunk seemed to be pulled up again by a gentle gravitational force. It was light and a bit unreal. Even more amazingly, I couldn't hear Shen Yanxi's inner thoughts at all now. He wasn't thinking about anything. Everything he showed was the most real thought in his heart. My shoulders suddenly relaxed. I realized again that Shen Yanxi could be trusted. Since that's the case, it's better to be more straightforward. I walked up to Shen Yanxi, smiled at him, and said directly, let's eat. After that, we can have a chat. As soon as I finished speaking, Shen Yanxi's heart instantly exploded. Have a chat? Chat about what? Divorce. I knew there was something wrong with Wen Nan being so abnormal today. What should I do if my wife wants to divorce me? I don't want to live anymore. Should I work overtime tonight, and also tomorrow? Maybe I should just live in the company for this month, or even for the whole half year. No divorce, no divorce. Heavenly Emperor and Guanyin Bodhisattva, please tell this disciple how to stop my wife from divorcing me. I was suddenly bombarded by Shen Yanxi's inner thoughts. When I finally listened clearly, I felt rather amused and frustrated at the same time. What are you standing there for? Let's go. I simply reached out and grabbed his wrist, pulling him downstairs. I'll talk to you about Wen Bei after dinner, don't think too much. The moment I grabbed his wrist, Shen Yanxi's inner thoughts abruptly stopped. After that, he showed an unusual docility throughout the whole process. When I mentioned Wen Bei, he just softly responded with an The noodles cooked by Shen Yanxi unexpectedly tasted quite good. I didn't hold back and gave him a lot of praise. I praised him so much that while he was washing the dishes, he was thinking about not asking the auntie to come anymore and that he would take care of all the household chores. After Shen Yanxi finished tidying up, he sat upright on the single sofa next to me. I looked at him, still trying to organize my words on how to start, but he suddenly said, I have never liked Wen Bei, and I didn't treat you as a substitute for her. I paused for a moment, a bit surprised that he would take the initiative to bring up this matter. In my previous life, except for the time when he stopped me from imitating Wen Bei's words and deeds, we had never openly discussed this issue. Even during the 3 years of our marriage, the number of our serious conversations could be counted on 2 hands. It was precisely because of this that those people had the opportunity to take advantage of the situation and deceive me out. After a moment of contemplation, I was even more certain that the most pressing matter was to solve the problem of the lack of information communication between Shen Yanxi and me. Without hesitation, I came straight to the point and said, there's something I want to apologize to you for. Shen Yanxi immediately frowned. Nan is apologizing to me. Could it be that she's in some kind of trouble? I just saw Wen Bei's diary in your study. I sped up my words to put an end to Shen Yanxi's inner drama in advance. Sure enough, I saw a flash of shock on his face. I pursed my lips, and in Shen Yanxi's gradually darkening gaze, I slowly voiced out the question in my heart. Shen Yanxi, since you said you've never liked Wen Bei, why do you still keep her diary? The living room became extremely quiet. I slowed down my breathing and focused all my attention on Shen Yanxi's inner thoughts. Did Nan see that diary? Should I tell her now, or find an excuse to get through this? When I heard the word excuse, I squinted my eyes slightly. However, Shen Yanxi quickly thought again. telling her about this might put her in danger, but I don't want to lie to her either. Shin Yanxi lowered his head slightly, his hair blocked part of his sight, and I couldn't see his expression clearly. However, listening to his inner words, I confirmed my speculation. There was something wrong with Wenbei's death. I pursed my lips, and in an instant, I felt the emotions in my heart surging as if they were about to explode. Shin Yanxi was still silent. I forcefully suppressed the sour feeling in my heart and said with a slight tremor in my voice, Shin Yanxi, I don't have any other family members besides you. Please don't lie to me, okay? Shin Yanxi suddenly raised his head and looked at me as if he couldn't believe what I said. I myself couldn't tell how much sincerity and how much use there was in these words, but I could hear the passionate and surging feelings in Shin Yanxi's heart. This made me not even dare to look into his eyes too much. After a while, Shin Yanxi stood up and said, "Come to the study with me." In the study, Shin Yanxi took out Wenbei's diary and handed it to me. The password is 1121, you'll understand after reading the content. I followed Shin Yanxi's words and opened the diary. My hands were shaking when I entered the password. Wenbei's diary was indeed a record of her love affairs. She fell in love with someone in university and then started dating him. However, the name of this person never appeared. I flipped through the pages one by one. The earlier part was just some ordinary feelings about being in love. However, when I read further, I couldn't help but frown. He seems a bit strange recently. Is he facing some trouble? I asked him, and he said he was in a bad mood and asked me to go on a trip with him to relax. This is our first trip together, and I'm so looking forward to it. Except for these two records with a long interval, there was only a photo of a man's back on the following pages. I looked at the back of the man in the photo and felt a bit familiar, but I couldn't remember who he was for a moment. Other than that, there was nothing else recorded in this diary. I looked at Shin Yanxi in a daze. Shin Yanxi pursed his lips, as if organizing his words. A few months before Wenbei's accident, she attended my birthday party. We hadn't been in touch for a long time before that, but that time, she suddenly started reminiscing with me about a research trip we had in junior high school in City Z. Shin Yanxi walked next to me and took the diary from my hand. She was called away after saying just a few words and left early soon after. I didn't realize that something was strange about her until after her accident. I'm sorry, if I had noticed it earlier, I might have been able to help her. Shin Yanxi looked at me with a guilty expression. I shook my head and said softly, "It's not your fault. So you went to City Z?" "Yeah." She mentioned twice that the hotel she stayed in at that time was very comfortable, so I took a business trip there. I got the diary at the front desk, and the password was also told to me by the front desk staff. Shin Yanxi looked at the page where Wenbei pasted the photo, and after a moment of contemplation, he said, "I heard from the front desk that she came with a man that day and stayed for about a week. The diary was found in the corner of the bathroom. When they found the diary, there was an inner page attached to it, written with my name and 4 digits using an eyebrow pencil, and it also said not to make a fuss and wait for me to come and pick it up. You know, those hotels always take the requests of guests like us very seriously. So they kept that diary until I went to inquire and then gave it to me." The more I listened, the tighter my frown became. Wenbei's behavior was really strange. I looked at the man in the photo and pointed at him. "Do you know him?" "Yes, I do. His name is Chu Mulan." I was stunned for a moment, and then I suddenly understood. No wonder he looked familiar to me. This person was quite a famous figure in our circle. He was originally an illegitimate son of the Chu family. Later, he was recognized back into the family, but a few years ago, he suddenly announced that he was breaking away from the Chu family. After that, he started his own business and had been on the rise ever since. Now, he has reached a level where he can completely compete with the Chu family. People privately joke that he is the male protagonist of a contemporary cool story novel. I didn't expect that Wenbei's boyfriend was actually him. Shin Yanxi tore off the photo of the man from the notebook and held it at an angle towards the light. He pointed it out to me, and then I noticed that there were several scratches on the photo. Shin Yanxi explained, "This is actually a code we set when we participated in a competition at school. These scratches are abbreviations of 2 English words, memory card and password." "Memory card and password, what do you mean?" I asked in confusion. Shin Yanxi didn't give a clear answer, but just shook his head. He pasted the photo back and suddenly looked at me very seriously. "Nan, I know you're Wenbei's family member, and you care a lot about her affairs, but I haven't found out more about this matter yet, and I can't be sure if there is some kind of danger involved." He paused for a moment and then added softly, or maybe I'm just overthinking it. Hearing this, I lowered my eyes and tugged at the corner of my mouth with a bit of sourness. Shin Yanxi wasn't overthinking it. Wenbei's behavior was indeed very abnormal, and this matter was indeed dangerous. In my previous life, the two of us had already verified this with our lives once. They all wanted to protect me, so they tried their best to keep me from getting involved in this matter, but the fact proved that being kept in the dark couldn't ensure absolute safety. Only by eliminating the danger from this source and taking the initiative into our own hands could we achieve true victory. I roughly integrated all the things I knew from these 2 lifetimes in my heart, then I raised my head and smiled at Shin Yanxi. Wenbei must have had no other choice when she came to you at that time. I'm sorry that she dragged you into this dangerous matter even though it had nothing to do with you. Shin Yanxi shook his head. He seemed to have also realized that I wouldn't believe his excuse of overthinking, so he didn't open his mouth to refute, but I clearly heard him thinking in his heart. In fact, I should thank Wenbei for choosing to tell me about this matter. If Wenbei really offended some dangerous person, it's hard to say that Nan Nan wouldn't be implicated. At least now I still have the opportunity to take the initiative and protect Nan Nan. I felt my heart skip a beat uncontrollably. A feeling of being touched and slightly sour instantly filled my entire chest. I tugged at the corner of my mouth and looked at Shin Yanxi, and said firmly, Shin Yanxi, I don't want to do anything that I'll regret anymore, even if there is danger. I want to know all the truth. I paused for a moment, and then smiled at him. Besides, I have you, right? Hearing my words, Shin Yanxi was unexpectedly not as excited as I had imagined. He didn't say or think anything. He just looked at me quietly for a few seconds and finally nodded solemnly. After putting away the diary, he urged me to go back and rest, and then he was about to walk out past me. The moment we passed each other, I instinctively grabbed his arm. Shin Yanxi was taken aback and asked in a low voice, Is there anything else? Tonight, I pursed my lips, my fingers gripping his arm tightened slightly, and I gritted my teeth and said, Can you sleep with me tonight? I don't want to be alone. Crash. The ornament on Shin Yanxi's desk, which was worth 800,000 yuan, was shattered into pieces. His previously calm inner world was instantly filled with all kinds of incoherent screams. I watched him scurrying around to clean up with amusement. My originally somewhat whiny mood miraculously calmed down. In the evening, for the first time since we got married, Shin Yanxi and I lay on the same bed, but he only occupied a corner of the bed, to the extent that he would fall off the bed if he turned over. Considering that I had already given him enough shocks today, so I decided to let him off for now. I turned my back to Shin Yanxi and tried to fall asleep. However, I kept hearing the sound of his inner muttering from behind. Am I going to die? Otherwise, why is Nan Nan being so nice to me today? Could there be something wrong with the last medical examination report? My God, this can't be hospice care, can it? No. I have to find a lawyer to consult tomorrow and see how I can leave more things for Nan Nan after I die. At first, I thought about ignoring Shin Yanxi's inner thoughts and leaving him alone. However, he just wouldn't stop, and what he said were all things I didn't want to hear. I endured it again and again until I couldn't stand it anymore. I simply turned over, raised my hands and feet, and slapped them onto Shin Yanxi's body. The world instantly became quiet. I hooked the corner of my mouth in satisfaction and snuggled closer into Shin Yanxi's arms, holding his body that was as stiff as a zombie. I finally gradually felt sleepy and fell asleep. When I woke up the next day, Shin Yanxi had already gone to the company. Since I had nothing to do at home, I simply immersed myself in the study to study Wenbei's diary. Wenbei finally chose to give the diary to Shin Yanxi. It was very likely that the degree of danger of this matter could only be countered by someone with Shin Yanxi's status. But based on my understanding of Wenbei, she wasn't the kind of person who would forcefully impose danger on others. That meant that this matter might be more serious than we thought. I spent a whole day studying Wenbei's diary, but there were really too few useful clues in the diary. After looking at it over and over again, I still thought that this matter should start with Chu Mulan. I originally planned to discuss it with Shin Yanxi in the evening, but when he came back from work, he suddenly took the initiative to say to me, If you don't have any arrangements recently, would you like to come and work in my company? He paused for a moment and then added, I have a cooperation project with Chu Mulan recently, and I think you might want to participate. I immediately perked up. I thought it was just what I needed at the right time, and without hesitation, I said, No problem, I'll start working tomorrow. There's no rush. Wait until I finish the handover here, you can come next Monday, Shing Xiao said it seriously. I didn't suspect anything. I was just about to tell him some things I thought of when studying Wenbei's diary today, but then I heard him let out a long sigh of relief in his heart and say, "Great, now I can finally be with my wife all day long." Anyway, Nan already knows what she should know. I don't want to live the kind of life where I can't see my wife for at least 8 hours a day. Come to think of it, it shouldn't be a problem to make contact with Chu Mulin within a week, right? Forget it. I'll ask Xiao Zhang to find his phone number for me later. If it doesn't work, I'll just tell Nan that there's something wrong with the project and think of other ways. During this week, I just watched coldly as Shing Xiao kept answering calls and working overtime at home. When it was time for me to go to the company and start working as we had agreed, he really managed to establish contact with Chu Mulin. The two of us looked at the project plan in his office and both felt that things were going a bit too smoothly. I'm afraid that Chu Mulin has already sensed something. Not only do we want to find him, but he might also want to find us. Sure enough, the subsequent project promotion was very efficient. As Shing Xiao's secretary, I accompanied him to several meetings and finally met Chu Mulin in person. He looked gentle and refined in person. He would put on a smile when talking to anyone, making people feel very friendly, but maybe because of my preconceived notions, I always felt that his smile was very false. Moreover, I always felt that he was sizing me up intentionally or unintentionally. I pretended not to notice and focused on my work throughout. It wasn't until the meeting ended and Chu Mulin shook hands with Shing Xiao to say goodbye. I then pretended to look at him casually and happened to meet his gaze. Chu Mulin seemed to be surprised that I would suddenly look at him and was clearly taken aback, but in an instant, he composed himself completely, smiled politely at me, and then left on the pretext of work. There was no sign of anything abnormal at all. I frowned slightly as I looked at his back. My intuition told me that he wanted to say something to me. It was just that he didn't take action because the occasion wasn't right. But what was there about me that was worthy of his attention, after all? I didn't even know that he had been in a relationship with Wenbei. There was no reason for him to approach me, or was it because of Shing Xiao? Even though I had lived 2 lifetimes, the clues I had were still too few. My mind was a bit confused, especially when I thought about the ending between Shing Xiao and me in my previous life. Just thinking about the way he was covered in blood at the end, lying there with his body cold, made me feel extremely irritable. Subconsciously, I reached out and held Shing Xiao's hand beside me. The temperature of his palm was very high, and the heat gradually passed to my hand through the place where our skin touched. Feeling this real warmth, I finally felt my heartbeat gradually calm down, and I finally noticed Shing Xiao's noisy inner thoughts beside me again. Why did Nan stare at that Chu Mulin for so long? The guy has been gone for ages, and she's still looking. Even if she suspects him, she shouldn't be so fascinated, right? Could it be that Nan likes the type of Chu Mulin? What's so good about him except that he can smile a bit more than me? Maybe I should find a doctor and see if I can get a smile lip done. I'm here racking my brains and exhausting myself over the enemy in the dark. This love-struck guy is actually thinking about a smile lip. I was so angry that I laughed. I let go of his hand and pinched his arm hard. Shing Xiao didn't cry out in pain, but just looked at me blankly. What's wrong? Nothing. I just suddenly feel a bit worried about my future. I looked at him, squinted my eyes, and smiled falsely. Shing Xiao, if I die, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. After going back that day, Shing Xiao was well behaved for a while. Mainly, he kept thinking about why I suddenly got angry, and at least he didn't have the time to think about a smile lip anymore. However, through this incident, I suddenly began to realize. I can hear Shing Xiao's inner thoughts now and know what he's thinking. But Shing Xiao doesn't know what I'm thinking. The kidnapping, the rebirth, Wenbei's diary. I've been focusing all my energy on these things during this period, so much so that I've gotten used to directly listening to Shing Xiao's inner thoughts to understand him, completely ignoring the need to take the initiative to deal with this relationship with Shing Xiao. Shing Xiao is clearly full of unease about our relationship now. But then again, as far as I can remember, I don't seem to have done anything excessive to Shing Xiao, right? Why does it seem like he takes it for granted that I'll hate him? I secretly sized up Shing Xiao, who had entered his working state. I have to admit that when there are no messy inner thoughts ruining the atmosphere, Shing Xiao is indeed a very charming man. Coupled with the fact that I now clearly know all the things he has done for me over such a long time, It seems like a very natural thing to fall in love with him. I never considered this direction before because of various reasons. Now that I've thought of it, I won't run away from my feelings. The ability to read minds came out of nowhere, and I don't know when it will disappear. I want to live on with Xinyansi and spend a lifetime together. Some things have to be said by us ourselves. After figuring this out, I plan to find a suitable opportunity to have an open talk with Xinyansi. However, in the next month or so, we worked overtime until we were completely exhausted. We not only had to catch up on the progress of the project with Chu Mulan, Xinyansi was also using his connections to investigate what had happened before Wenbei's accident. I was so busy that I almost went to buy some quick-acting heart-relieving pills and keep them in the office. As for having a romantic talk or confessing to Xinyansi, I didn't have the slightest bit of energy to spare. We kept being busy like this until the weather turned completely cold. Xinyansi suddenly brought back 2 invitation letters. I took them and took a look, and instantly perked up. An invitation letter to Chu Mulan's birthday party. November 21st is actually his birthday, no wonder. Thinking of the password to open Wenbei's diary, my hand holding the invitation letter trembled a bit. Wenbei mentioned the password. Since it's Chu Mulan's birthday, this matter must be related to him. I felt that Chu Mulan had something to say to me during the meeting that day. I'll see if I can talk to him on his birthday. I looked at Xinyansi and smiled slightly under his obscure gaze, with a bit of a soothing meaning. I took the initiative to place my hand on the back of his hand and said softly, "Don't worry. I won't be out of your sight." As soon as I finished speaking, I indeed heard the sound of Xinyansi heaving a sigh of relief in his heart. Then he thought again, Nan doesn't seem to hate me that much recently. Is it because I'm helping her investigate Wenbei's matter? Forget it, it doesn't matter. As long as she's happy, that's enough. I was stunned when I heard this, and my heart couldn't help but be moved. However, before I could savor it properly, Xinyansi's inner thoughts took a turn and he said, "It's not easy for Nan to start accepting me now. I must break the rumor of the substitute, find 2 people to act out a scene, let them come in front of us and mention the matter of the substitute loudly. In this way, I can clarify it logically and also take the opportunity to warn others not to spread rumors randomly. Okay, that's it. Let Xiaozhang contact them in the evening and hire 2 people with good acting skills. Don't let it slip me." When it came to Chu Mulan's birthday, I somehow found an excuse to dispel Xinyansi's embarrassing idea. However, although it was an excuse, I did have some other thoughts about the matter of the substitute. On the first day of my rebirth, I heard Xinyansi say in his heart that he had made a clarification, including in my previous life. Xinyansi had denied it to me more than once, but I only misunderstood because I saw the substantial thing like Wenbei's diary. Why did other people firmly believe it, at least? Considering the situations in both lifetimes, I think there must be someone fueling the flames behind this, and spreading such a rumor must also have some other purpose. Perhaps, it's to drive a wedge between Xinyansi and me. Xinyansi and I discussed and agreed that we would pretend to be on bad terms and act separately when we arrived at the scene. After half of the banquet was over, Chu Mulan finally couldn't hold back and walked towards me. I pretended to know nothing and exchanged a few pleasantries with him. Sure enough, he took the initiative to mention his relationship with Wenbei. I feigned shock. He didn't say more, just pursed his lips extremely restrainedly. I saw his eyes gradually turn a bit red. That kind of restrained and genuine sadness made me almost dispel my suspicion of him in an instant. Before I could react, he had already composed himself and smiled at me. "Let's exchange contact information. If you have any trouble, you can come to me, and I'll help you. I think Wenbei would also want you to be happy, whether in life or in love." After he finished speaking, he seemed to casually glance in the direction of Xinyansi. I followed his gaze. Xinyansi happened to glance in our direction and then indifferently looked away. It was as if he really didn't care about me at all. I withdrew my gaze, didn't say more, and just exchanged a knowing and bitter smile with Chu Mulan. I added his contact information. It wasn't until the end of the banquet that I met up with Xinyansi again. After we met, I noticed that his state was a bit strange. He was absent-minded when I talked to him on the way home. I simply fell silent too. It wasn't until we were near home that I heard him say almost indifferently in his heart, "I'm still too useless." I remained silent, got out of the car first, and left without waiting for him. I washed up, tidied up, and went back to the bedroom. It wasn't until he came to the bedside that I suddenly reached out when he wasn't paying attention and pushed him down on the bed. Shing Xiao leaned against the headboard and looked at me in surprise. I pressed his shoulders with both hands and looked at him seriously face to face. Shing Xiao finally had some flustered voices in his heart. I listened quietly, and after a while, I slowly said, Shing Xiao, for our plan today, did you not want to do it? Shing Xiao seemed not to have expected me to ask this and didn't respond for a moment. I waited patiently, and it was only after a few seconds that he lowered his eyes and said in a hoarse voice, don't worry, I won't ruin the plan. I was so angry that I laughed at him. Shing Xiao, did I accuse you? I was just asking if you didn't want to do it. His expression became even more confused. I heard him say in his heart in an extremely matter-of-fact tone. It doesn't matter whether I want to or not, after all. Nan wants to do this. It seemed that he really hadn't considered himself at all. Whether he was happy or willing didn't matter. As long as this plan was something I wanted to complete, he would definitely do his best to help me. I knew his thoughts very well. I was touched and also very happy, but this wasn't okay. If Shing Xiao kept suppressing himself and ignoring his emotions like this, his state would definitely have problems after a long time. I took a deep breath gently. I felt that besides these emotions in my heart, there was also a faint, uncontrollable restlessness. I looked directly into his eyes and intensified the tone. Shing Xiao, I'm asking you again, didn't you want to do it? He opened his mouth slightly, avoiding my gaze. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter my ass. I really felt like I was hitting a piece of cotton with a punch. I was so angry that I didn't know what to say. I let go of his shoulders, stretched out my finger, and pointed at the position of his heart. I was both angry and amused as I said, Shing Xiao, it was you who helped me pay off the huge debt after my family's accident, and it was also you who somehow wanted to marry me. I know all the big and small things you've done for me in the past 2 years. I'm not a fool. All your actions clearly show that you like me. Why is it so difficult for you to say this from your mouth? Shing Xiao slowly widened his eyes and looked at me in disbelief. I had thought for so long about the right opportunity and the right words, but I didn't expect that in a fit of excitement, I just blurted out these words. Many things become easier once they have a beginning, regardless of Shing Xiao's expression. I continued to point at his heart and said, Shing Xiao, if you want me to accept you, you have to let me know what you're thinking. I don't have the ability to read minds. How can I understand if you don't say anything? Or is it that I've been flattering myself from the beginning to the end? Do you actually plan to become a monk after you turn 30, and being nice to me now is just about doing good deeds and accumulating virtue? I don't. No, it's you don't. He instinctively denied me anxiously. However, he stopped halfway through his words. I didn't let him go and continued to ask, I don't have what? You don't. His expression gradually showed a painful entanglement. I felt his chest heaving more and more. After a long time, he said word by word with difficulty, you're not flattering yourself. After saying this, he seemed to deflate like a punctured balloon, and his body instantly slumped down. I saw him avoid my gaze. I heard a voice in his heart that was almost desolate and said flatly, Nan has seen it. She'll probably hate me even more, right? Hate? Why? I was so surprised by Shing Xiao's inner thoughts that I accidentally blurted out the words, but Shing Xiao didn't seem to hear me. I simply patted him and directly asked my question. By the way, Shing Xiao, you seem to have always thought that I hate you. Why do you think so? He came back to his senses and frowned slightly. Didn't you hate me before? Since your sophomore year of high school, you suddenly cut off all private contact with me. You didn't pay much attention to me when we met usually, and your attitude towards me became very cold. You should have hated me, right? Moreover, after the accident in your family this time, I took advantage of the situation and forced you to marry me. Wait a moment, you mean high school? I never expected that the source of this matter could be traced back so long ago. I thought about it carefully and explained absurdly. Back in my sophomore year of high school, I thought you were going to get married in an arranged marriage with Wenbei. How could I still maintain private contact with my sister's fiancé? When did I say I was going to have an arranged marriage with Wenbei? Shing Xiao suddenly sat up straight from the headboard and looked at me in disbelief. I spread my hands helplessly and said, I heard my parents chatting about it. Maybe the adults had that intention, I'm not really sure. Shing Xiao pursed his lips, seemingly unable to accept it for a moment. I heard that his inner thoughts had completely turned into a series of interjections due to excessive shock. I found it funny and simply poked his shoulder and snorted, "See, if you had directly told me that you liked me at that time, there wouldn't have been so many problems. I didn't like you at that time. When I heard that you were going to marry my sister, I definitely had to keep my distance from you." Finally, a trace of regret appeared on Xinyanxi's face. I pressed on with my advantage and said, "I'm telling you, don't think that now that we're married and have the marriage certificate, everything is fine. Trust and honesty are the foundation of marriage. If you still don't say anything in the future and make me guess, then if I guess wrong, misunderstand you, and don't like you anymore, it will be your own fault. Do you understand?" Xinyanxi's expression tightened, and he suddenly looked at me, his eyes faintly shining with anticipation. "Not like me in the future, so you now." I nodded with a smile. Xinyanxi's breath suddenly caught in his throat. The first thing he felt wasn't even joy but confusion. I could hear Xinyanxi's inner thoughts. I knew that although he was love-struck every day in his heart, but in fact, he had never dared to think even once that I would like him too. In the balance of our relationship, he had placed himself in a lower position from the very beginning. He could give everything for me, even his life, and I didn't need to repay him for anything. I looked at the surprised and at a loss expression on his face, which was like that of a child who had received candy for the first time. I suddenly didn't want to ask the remaining questions. My heart seemed to be gently gripped by a hand, aching with a sour and bitter feeling. Those hidden affections, those bloody acts of protection. Scene after scene played out before my eyes, gradually blurring my vision. Suddenly, I propped myself up and, before Xinyanxi could react, turned and sat on his lap. Words were no longer enough to convey my emotions at this moment. I cupped Xinyanxi's face and looked at him tenderly yet firmly. "Xinyanxi, I love you. Right now, I urgently need you to fulfill your duties as a husband. You'd better accept reality quickly, or I might change my mind." As soon as I finished speaking, I felt a force of weightlessness, and Xinyanxi and I switched positions. Outside the window, the dark clouds covering the moon slowly drifted away with the wind blowing from afar. The road ahead might still be uncertain, but at least, at this moment, the moonlight bathed everything, bright and clear. After that day, Xinyanxi's demeanor clearly changed. Specifically, he became even more clingy, and probably because we had cleared up some misunderstandings, he was no longer as reserved as before. Although he still didn't talk much, I knew these things took time. After all, I could still hear his inner thoughts, so I wasn't worried about any misunderstandings. Moreover, recently, Chu Mulan had been contacting me much more frequently. Most of our energy was still focused on this matter. When Chu Mulan reached out to me, he didn't ask me out. Instead, we chatted online. Most of our conversations were about Wenbei. From our chats, I learned that he and Wenbei got together during their sophomore year of college. At first, he didn't let Wenbei go public with their relationship. It was because he felt that his status as an illegitimate child wasn't good enough for Wenbei. Later, after he left the Chu family and succeeded in starting his own business, he proposed to Wenbei, but he never expected that Wenbei would be in a car accident. I was skeptical of his words but still pretended to be sad to cooperate with him. I also noticed that although his hints were subtle when chatting with me, he was indeed insinuating that Xinyanxi had always liked Wenbei. He said that Xinyanxi used to always hover around Wenbei and did many affectionate things for her. When Xinyanxi saw this chat record, he mentally cursed Chu Mulan's ancestors. Slander. It's all slander. I didn't have frequent private contacts with Wenbei at all. I soothed him amusedly while continuing to play along with Chu Mulan. I maintained contact with Chu Mulan online while also pretending to have a strained relationship with Xinyanxi in public. Xinyanxi acted as if he didn't care about me, and I acted as if I didn't trust him. In this way, we moved in with Chu Mulan for several months. It wasn't until the following spring that Chu Mulan finally started tentatively mentioning some requests to me. By then, all our conversations had tacitly accepted the premise that Xinyanxi liked Wenbei. Chu Mulan seemingly accidentally brought up in the flow of conversation. He said that he and Wenbei had a commemorative USB drive, which contained some videos that weren't suitable for others to see. That USB drive should have been left at Wenbei's home. But the house had been bought by Xinyanxi. He said that since Xinyanxi knew about his relationship with Wenbei, Xinyanxi would never agree to give him Wenbei's things, so he asked if I could help get that USB drive for him. My heart trembled when I read these words. I knew we were finally getting close to the deepest hidden secret. To be honest, we hadn't stopped investigating in these past few months, But apart from confirming that Chu Mulan was the one spreading the substitute rumor, everything else seemed to have hit a dead end. I couldn't help but feel excited when I saw Chu Mulan's request, but the USB drive he mentioned also made me very curious. I told Shing Xiao about it. He looked solemn and pondered. I'm sure the clue Wenbei left was a memory card, not a USB drive. Strangely enough, Shing Xiao's words made me even more suspicious of the USB drive. After thinking it over, I didn't agree to Chu Mulan's request. I also vaguely implied that I didn't have the right to make demands on Shing Xiao and might not be able to enter my former home again. Chu Mulan didn't force me. He just said he would find another way. But a few days later, Shing Xiao and I had a big fight at the company because of the substitute rumor. Coincidentally, it was heard by passing colleagues and spread. That night, I took the initiative to contact Chu Mulan and asked him for more details about the USB drive. Chu Mulan called me directly and said, "It's an ordinary white USB drive, but the 4 numbers 1121 are engraved on it." My heart skipped a beat, and I blurted out, "Your birthday?" "Yeah." His voice was still gentle and refined, but it's also the day we first met. I saw her in the school auditorium and fell in love at first sight. I'll never forget that day. Actually, we went back there once before Wenbei's accident. It was our 6th anniversary. We recorded some things and saved them on this USB drive. This USB drive really holds many memories for me. It means a lot to me. Nan, I can only count on you for this. Please help me. Not until the call ended did I feel like my heart was about to jump out of my throat. I suddenly had a bold guess. When Shing Xiao came back, I pulled him into the study and took out Wenbei's diary. Pointing at the 2 clues Wenbei left, I told Shing Xiao about my phone call with Chu Mulan. Shing Xiao immediately understood and said, "You think Wenbei hid the memory card in our university auditorium?" "It's possible." I didn't want to be too certain. After a moment of thought, Shing Xiao said he would send someone to look for it. I nodded and brought up another concern, this USB drive. I have a feeling it's real. Should I go back home? I looked at Shing Xiao, seeking his advice. But Shing Xiao looked at me seriously. I heard him think. Nan will be sad if she goes back to the Wen family now. But what should I do? I can't stop her from going home forever. I didn't expect that would be Shing Xiao's first reaction. To be honest, I hadn't even thought about it. My heart felt like it had been submerged in a huge swimming pool filled with marshmallows. It turned sweet and soft in an instant. I opened my arms, and Shing Xiao naturally pulled me into his embrace. Leaning against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, I said, "Come with me. I have a hunch that we won't lose this time, so whether it's a disguise or the truth, let's witness it together." A few days later, Shing Xiao and I went back to the Wen family's old villa. It was the first time I'd been back since the Wen family's accident. Before, I was afraid of being reminded of the past. Now, with Shing Xiao by my side, it didn't seem so sad. The house remained exactly as it was before my parents' accident. Shing Xiao and I searched for the USB drive separately. Surprisingly, we found it in my parents' room. The USB drive was locked in a small safe by my parents. I was shocked when I found it, because the password I used to open the safe was the one my parents usually used. This meant my parents had hidden it there. But why did my parents have the USB drive that Chu Mulan was looking for? Could it be that what Wenbei was investigating was also related to my parents? My mind went completely blank. I instinctively looked at Shing Xiao, only to find him unexpectedly calm. Without a trace of surprise, it was as if he had known all along. I calmed down and tried to listen to his inner thoughts, but his mind was unusually quiet. Shing Xiao frowned slightly, his eyes fixed on the USB drive, as if contemplating something. I called his name, and he seemed to gradually come back to his senses. Shing Xiao turned to look at me but didn't come close as he usually did. Unexpectedly, he said, Nan, I just found out something recently. I think I know what business Chu Mulan is really doing." My heart trembled, and I whispered, "What is it?" "Human trafficking." Shing Xiao emphasized each word. My eyes widened in shock. "Human trafficking? Are you sure?" Shing Xiao nodded. "I'm afraid that's what Wenbei was trying to expose, and maybe your parents knew about it too." I understood every word Shing Xiao said, but when they came together as a sentence, I couldn't make sense of it. Shing Xiao's voice turned cold. "Chu Mulan is involved in human trafficking in Southeast Asia. I used some connections to investigate, although I haven't got conclusive evidence yet. I'm pretty sure." I stared at the USB drive in front of me, forcing myself to calm down and think about what Shing Xiao said. Shing Xiao continued, "About 2 years ago, one of Chu Mulan's shipping routes along the southeast coast was reported. At the same time, his entire funding chain along the southeast coast was completely cut off. He managed to cover his tracks, but he suffered heavy losses and was almost caught. Shin Yanxi looked up at me, his gaze unreadable. I covered my mouth with my hand, feeling my breathing grow heavy. Shin Yanxi said word by word, "It was your parents who did it." When my suspicion was confirmed, I couldn't catch my breath and started coughing violently. Shin Yanxi rushed over immediately to pat my back and help me catch my breath. I waved my hand. I coughed so hard that my stomach started churning, and I barely managed to stop. When I opened my mouth, my voice was hoarse beyond recognition. I cleared my throat and then said with difficulty and confusion, "My parents, yeah, I don't know the details, but I'm certain it was your parents who did it back then." Shin Yanxi handed me a glass of water. He had always hired people to maintain this house. Looking at the familiar and tidy room, I felt as if my parents had just gone out and would come back laughing and chatting any moment. I opened my mouth, wanting to say something but not knowing where to start. I even began to wonder if this so-called rebirth was just a hallucination before my death. I felt as if my soul had left my body and floated into the air. I was lost, not knowing which way to go. When Nan, listen to me. I have to send her away. Chu Mulan will never let her go. Two voices rang in my ears simultaneously, like a bomb. It jolted my wandering soul back into my body. I reacted a beat too late. In that short moment, I heard Shin Yanxi say gently but firmly, "I bought you a plane ticket to Country R tonight. I've arranged for someone to pick you up there. I will definitely get to the bottom of this. I'll find out what really happened to Wenbei and your parents. I won't let Chu Mulan go. You've helped me investigate him enough." The more I listened, the more I wanted to shut him up. Shin Yanxi must have planned all this in advance, which was why he had been standing a few steps away from me. Before I could actually cover his mouth, I shouted sharply, "Shin Yanxi, shut up." Shin Yanxi ignored me. He even smiled at me, his handsome face full of undisguised love. Nan, be good. After what your family did, Chu Mulan will never spare you. Go to Country R tonight. There's an old friend of my grandfather there, and no one will dare to touch you. Just wait for me. I'll take care of everything you're worried about, and then I'll come and get you. Looking at Shin Yanxi's determined expression, I knew there was no changing his mind. Even if I refused, he would probably force me to leave the country. Suddenly, I understood why Shin Yanxi distanced himself from me and later wanted a divorce during the last year of our previous life. He must have found out about all this back then. In our previous life, I hadn't had direct contact with Chu Mulan, and my relationship with Shin Yanxi was cold and strained, so Shin Yanxi didn't insist on sending me abroad. Our relationship was different in this life, but it seemed Shin Yanxi hadn't changed at all. He still wanted me to live while he was willing to risk his life. I knew very well. I went over every detail of my relationship with Shin Yanxi from our previous life to this life in my mind. Instead of responding to what Shin Yanxi said, after a long pause, I suddenly asked, "Shin Yanxi, I've heard many people say that the Shin family's rise wasn't through ordinary means. They say that all of you in the Shin family are cold-blooded, ruthless, and willing to do anything to achieve your goals, with no genuine feelings for anyone. I've never asked you before. Why do you like me so much?" After I finished speaking, I casually pulled a chair and sat down. Although Shin Yanxi and I had confessed our feelings to each other, it seemed I had overlooked something. Now that we knew we loved each other and had cleared up the misunderstandings, there was no reason for Shin Yanxi to still see himself as the inferior one in our relationship. There must be something I didn't know. I was prepared for a long, drawn-out discussion with Shin Yanxi. However, to my surprise, after a moment of silence, Shin Yanxi said, "I'm not good at expressing things like this." "I know. Take your time," I replied softly but firmly. Shin Yanxi had been better at expressing his emotions in front of me recently, although I didn't know why something as simple as expressing feelings was so difficult for him. I wasn't in a hurry. I was willing to wait, but since he was pushing me now, I had to be more assertive. He gave me a slightly helpless look. I heard him sigh in his mind. Then, he finally began to speak slowly and clumsily. "My family is indeed quite different from ordinary ones. Since I can remember, the most common thing I heard was that emotions are the most useless things, and only money, power, and status matter. Therefore, the education I've received has always been about how to become cold-blooded and ruthless and climb to a higher position." He paused and let out a sigh. Strangely, I felt that he seemed a bit more relaxed. Maybe he'd decided to just let it all go, I thought to myself, but still waited patiently for him to continue. All the children in my family have to take a special class at a very young age, which is about how to get rid of useless emotions, such as feelings of compassion, sympathy, and other forms of tenderness. This class doesn't teach anything else, they just prepare a puppy and a knife. And what I'm supposed to do is kill the puppy with the knife. What the hell, that's crazy. I couldn't hold back and blurted out. Shing Xiao smiled, and I almost wanted to stop him from talking, but if I stopped him now, I didn't know if I'd ever get another chance to hear him say these things, so I endured and waited for him to gradually reveal the real him to me. Shing Xiao continued, I was just a child then, and of course, I couldn't bring myself to do it. They locked me up, without food or water. I wouldn't be able to get out unless I killed the puppy. Shing Xiao spoke calmly. But all I wanted was to go back in time and get rid of those who had forced him. Did you do it in the end? I asked softly, my voice trembling slightly. Shing Xiao let out a bitter laugh and shook his head, full of self-mockery. Yes, I did. I cut myself a few times, got some blood on me, and then threw the dog out through the only vent. When the person watching me came to check on me and saw that I was covered in blood, they opened the door. I told them the dog had tried to attack me, and I'd killed it and thrown it out. I knew that if they couldn't find the puppy's body and the blood on me didn't contain animal blood, they'd easily figure out I was lying, but at my age and with my abilities back then, that was the best I could do. I gritted my teeth and endured for a while, then suddenly stood up. I walked over and hugged him, wanting to offer some comfort. He stiffened for a moment, then gently stroked my head before continuing. After saying that, I fainted because I was too weak. But when I woke up again, I heard that they'd detected animal blood in the blood on me and also found the puppy's body. I barely passed that test. It was only later that I learned an aunt who was close to my mother had helped me. The aunt told me that she'd been closely watching and trying to find a way to help me during those days I was locked up. And she'd heard what I said as soon as I said it. Coincidentally, my second younger brother was also taking that class at the time, and we used puppies from the same litter, which looked very similar. I was probably the only one in my family who resisted that task extremely. Anyway, my second younger brother completed it smoothly. The aunt was in charge of disposing of the used props, so she used that puppy's body to help me get away with it. Shing Xiao gave a self-deprecating smile. Even though I managed to get through it, I don't think the puppy could have survived. It was very young, hadn't eaten or drunk anything for days, and was already very weak. The vent I threw it out of was very high. Even if it didn't die from the fall, it wouldn't have had the strength to go out and seek help. Besides, that high-end residential area was remote, so it was almost certain to die. So, no matter how you look at it, I'm actually the murderer, and I can't escape that. I always told myself that. However, I never expected that a few years later, when I went back with Wenbei to get exam materials, I unexpectedly saw it again. My heart skipped a beat, and I stared at him in shock. Shing Xiao's voice became hoarse and even trembled slightly. Those people in the Shin family wouldn't notice, but I'd been with that puppy for several days, and I knew there was a small flaw on its nose. I couldn't be mistaken, so I was almost stunned, unable to believe it. When Bei told me that her younger sister had found the puppy outside a few years ago, the puppy had been on the verge of death at that time, looking like it was about to die, but her younger sister didn't want to give up and took it to the hospital, and surprisingly, it was saved. Then their family adopted the puppy. I suddenly pushed Shing Xiao away, my mouth wide open in disbelief. You mean Qiu? I did save a dying puppy in the neighborhood when I was a child. The puppy had a broken hind leg and always limped even after it was cured. I never thought it was. Shing Xiao curved his lips, looking at me deeply, and nodded solemnly. His eyes were slightly red, and his voice was full of restraint. He said, Nan, you probably can't imagine how I felt at that moment. In a place like the Shin family, emotions are worthless. There's no family affection, no trust, you can't be weak, and you can't show any vulnerability, or you'll die. Most of my older brothers and sisters died in infighting for power and profit. Even though I didn't want to accept that way of life, after all these years, I was almost ready to give in, but at that moment, you made me realize that my resistance had been meaningful. Nan, do you know, at that moment, I felt like I was saved. He smiled happily, but I couldn't hold back anymore. With tears streaming down my face, I kissed him. I finally understood why he had been suppressing his feelings. Why simple expressions were so difficult for him, and I also finally understood why he had gone to such lengths. Even though he knew that investigating Chu Mulan's affairs would be extremely dangerous, he still didn't hesitate. It wasn't just for me. Perhaps in his heart, there had always been that pure kindness and respect for life that the child within him had originally possessed. I pushed him away, crying so hard that I could barely breathe. He gently kissed the tears off my face and whispered in my ear tenderly, "Nan Nan, the reason I'm standing here today is that you saved me, but I also know very well that my feelings for you are no longer just gratitude. No matter from which perspective, I should help you and have every reason to protect your safety." He pressed his forehead against mine and said softly, "Nan Nan, I don't want to feel powerless again." I leaned against Xinyansi. And it took a long time for my emotions to calm down. In Xinyansi's mind, he probably still felt that he owed me a debt of gratitude, even though saving that puppy was just a random act on my part, but he had taken it upon himself to repay that debt. Gratitude and love, these are the two most complex and heavy emotions in the world. Xinyansi carried both of them, which was why he had always placed me on a pedestal in his heart. I finally understood it all. But why should I accept his self-imposed offering? We're just a couple who love each other. I composed myself, pushed him away, and stared at him seriously. "Xinyansi, tell me, what do you plan to do after you send me away?" Xinyansi thought to himself, "After I take over the Shin family, I can restore those severed relationships. I will definitely make Chu Mulan pay the price." But what he said aloud was, "I'll just do some business with him, as long as he leaves you alone in the future." "That'll be fine." Hearing these two completely different statements, I sneered. "Xinyansi, do you think I'm stupid? Let me ask you, isn't what Chu Mulan is doing extremely hateful? Doesn't he deserve to die 1,000 times? Xinyansi nodded seriously. I was so angry with him that I didn't know what to say. I simply slapped him on the head, "Then call the police. Wenbei might not have been able to report it, but you surely can. What he's done is enough to get him executed 1,000 times over." Xinyansi rarely looked so stunned when it came to serious matters. I heard him think, "But even if we catch him and sentence him to death, it's too easy for him." I gritted my teeth, looking at him with a sense of frustration. Considering the environment he grew up in, it wasn't surprising that he thought this way, but I couldn't let him do this. I thought of many things to say, but when it came to it, I didn't know how to put them into words. Finally, I let out a long sigh and said, "Xinyansi, I know you have your ways. You want to catch him with your own hands and make him suffer. You don't want him to die easily. I also want to kill him with my own hands. But then what would be the point of everything you've done for me?" Wenbei, my parents, and Xinyansi, they had protected me until the very last moment, hoping that I could live a good life. I'm investigating Wenbei's diary and delving into Chu Mulan's dangerous business because I don't want my loved ones to die in vain, but not avoiding danger doesn't mean I want to seek death. I said seriously to Xinyansi, "I don't know what you're thinking. Are you planning to die with Chu Mulan? But from the beginning to the end, I've only wanted us to live together. Of course, if there's no other choice and we end up dying, that's just how it is. But I will never look down on my life, and I will never seek revenge at the cost of my life. So, Xinyansi, don't sacrifice your life to repay a debt of gratitude, and don't sacrifice your life to protect me. We will find the truth, stop him, and make him pay the price." Suddenly, I relaxed, tilted my head at him, and smiled. "Xinyansi, after this is all over, come with me to see Wenbei and my parents. Let's tell them everything has been resolved and put their minds at ease. Then we can also tell them about our marriage. We've come this far, the evidence and the truth are all just one step away. We need to make him pay the price and also ensure that we can be together in the future. To achieve this, there's only one way, isn't there?" I saw Xinyansi's eyes flicker, and his expression gradually relaxed. I leaned in and kissed him, then buried my head in his shoulder. Feeling the warmth of his body, finally, I said, "Xinyansi, let's make a choice that benefits both of us." I finally managed to persuade Xinyansi. We hadn't called the police before because we weren't sure whether Wenbei's and my parents' deaths were accidents, not to mention Wenbei's ambiguous diary, but now that we had some evidence of Chu Mulan's crimes, calling the police was indeed the best option. With the Shin family's influence, Chu Mulan wouldn't be able to stop us. We quickly began to take action. However, I never expected that Chu Mulan would also act in advance. In my previous life, I was tricked into going out, so in this life, I naturally thought Chu Mulan would find an excuse to invite me out, but unexpectedly, I was knocked out directly while I was out. When I woke up, I found myself chained up in a room. This place was quite familiar to me. It was the same place I was taken to when I was kidnapped in my previous life, unlike last time. There was someone in front of me this time. Chu Mulan was still wearing a well-tailored white shirt. He was sitting at the table with his head resting on his hand, smiling gently at me. The moment our eyes met, I heard him say in a warm and friendly voice, "You're awake." I sat up almost instinctively, my nerves instantly on edge. Chu Mulan smiled and shook his head. "Don't be nervous, I just invited you here to ask you something." Invited? I shook the chains on my body and said sarcastically. Chu Mulan didn't seem to care. He took out a USB drive and played with it casually. The moment I saw the USB drive clearly, I was stunned. I'd actually just gone out to throw out the trash, and before that, I'd just finished watching the contents of the USB drive left by Wenbei. The content was unexpected. I didn't quite guess right. We'd been too careless. I felt a bit regretful. After pursing my lips and remaining silent for a while, I slowly said, "So, was this USB drive what Wenbei was trying to pass on at that time?" Chu Mulan nodded generously. "Yes, but I discovered it before she could send it out that time." She was quite smart, though. She had a backup plan and didn't carry the USB drive with her. I actually used some methods to get out of her what was on it later. But she stubbornly refused to say where she had hidden it. I wasted my sincere invitation for her to make money with us before. I even took her to our core base and showed her our punishment scene. Turns out she pretended to join us, but secretly collected evidence to stab me in the back. She was really hateful. Hearing his words, I suddenly widened my eyes and exclaimed in a voice that lost its usual pitch, "What methods did you use? What did you do to her?" Chu Mulan remained unmoved and even smiled at me. "Don't be so fierce. Your sisters, Wenbei was much gentler than you." As he spoke, he walked towards the table. "Of course, I used some methods to make her talk. You should already know what business I'm in, right?" He walked back to the table and sat down, playing with the USB drive casually as he said indifferently, "Our business mainly involves exporting overseas, coincidentally. Your family's shipping business in the southern and southeastern coastal areas is doing very well, and Wenbei was, without a doubt, the successor of your family's company. Of course, if you were the successor, I would have chased you back then." After saying that, he smiled at me. I felt a physical sense of nausea. He continued, "You know, our business dealing with people is different from dealing with cats and dogs. Animals are obedient, but human consciousness is too strong. So they're not easy to manage. For those who try to run away, we don't directly get rid of them when we catch them. We bring them back to the base and call everyone else to witness the fate of those who try to escape. The fear in people's hearts is much more effective than iron chains. After seeing others being tortured to death, they don't dare to have the idea of running away. Of course, since I wanted Wenbei to join us, I naturally had to let her know about these things. Which is why I took her to see the punishment scene, but I never expected that she would do such a thing even knowing our methods. She was really stupid. I was so angry that I couldn't speak for a moment and could only stare at him fiercely. Chu Mulan put away that false smile, and his expression immediately turned cold and ruthless. After Wenbei agreed to join us, I had someone keep an eye on her 24 hours a day. I really didn't expect that, even in such a situation, she could still find the opportunity to collect evidence. By the way, can you tell me how Wenbei managed to get in touch with Shin Yanxi? She was clearly stopped by me when she tried to send the message, but Shin Yanxi still found out. I really can't figure it out. I snorted disdainfully. If you can't figure it out, it just shows that you're stupid, you scumbag. Sure enough, Wenbei didn't not want to call the police. She couldn't. Say whatever you want. In the end, you've all lost to me, haven't you? Chu Mulan casually threw the USB drive into the trash can, wiped his hands, and said indifferently, "Since the USB drive you have is fake, the real one must be with Shin Yanxi. He should be here soon. The three of us can finally have a good talk face to face." My heart skipped a beat, and my first reaction was to worry if Shin Yanxi was following our plan. I was kidnapped so suddenly this time that I was really worried he would act impulsively out of anxiety. After all, in his heart, my life is more important than anything else. I was very uneasy, but there was nothing else I could do now. I could only force myself to suppress it and stared coldly at Chu Mulan. I still had some doubts that I couldn't figure out. I asked, "How can you be so sure that the USB drive in my hand is definitely fake?" "I'm not a fool. He looked at me with a bit of surprise in his eyes. The USB drive contains the records of my relationship with Wenbei. Why would she pass on something that no one cares about? She even sacrificed her life for it. He paused and then said through gritted teeth, however, I guess your parents found out something from Wenbei. They really loved their daughter. In the year after Wenbei died, they kept investigating our legitimate business. Several of our major funding chains were cut off by your parents. They were almost about to trace it back to me, so I had to deal with them quickly. I was stunned for a moment and then roared, you killed my parents. He shrugged indifferently. Of course, I also killed Wenbei. I couldn't possibly keep the lives of those who tried to send me to prison, could I? He said it so lightly, as if he hadn't killed people but some chickens and ducks for dinner. I was so angry that I gasped for breath and struggled to rush towards him, but the iron chains held me back. No wonder I wanted to take a leave of absence from school and go back to accompany my parents for a while after Wenbei died, but they acted unusually and firmly insisted that I must go back to complete my studies. Their excuse at that time was that the Wen family could only be handed over to me in the future, and I should study hard, so they already knew at that time. I felt that I had to use a great deal of effort to breathe, but I still couldn't catch my breath because of the pain. He suddenly said again, come to think of it, Shing Xiao didn't seem to care much about this matter before, but recently, he started investigating Wenbei's affairs on a large scale. I'm afraid it's all for you. I really have you to thank. I finally have the opportunity to get rid of this hidden danger once and for all. My heart tightened when I heard the words, get rid of this hidden danger once and for all. Before I could think deeper about it, suddenly, the footsteps of several people were heard outside. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively looked towards the door. The next second, several people brought Shing Xiao in. He was still wearing the clothes I wore on the day I was kidnapped, but he looked relatively neat. However, my first reaction was not joy. He actually came here alone. Just like in the previous life, he didn't even bring a bodyguard. I immediately panicked, but now I couldn't ask anything, nor could I show my panic. My heart was still filled with grief and indignation because of what Chu Mulin had just said, but the situation was not optimistic, so I could only force myself to suppress these emotions. I kept staring closely at Shing Xiao after he came in. He looked at me the first moment, and then he walked directly in front of Chu Mulin. The people who came in with him didn't leave but surrounded him. I couldn't see the situation inside clearly, but I could hear the voices. Shing Xiao said coldly, I prepared the thing you want, and I didn't bring anyone else. Let Wen Nan go. Chu Mulin sneered, now that you're here, do you really think you can leave? Although it's understandable that you're worried and act recklessly, Shing Xiao, I didn't expect you to be so irrational. I told you to come alone, and you really came alone. Since you both know my secret, you're not leaving today. Shing Xiao didn't respond to him. I really wanted to know what Shing Xiao's situation was now. It was just that I couldn't hear anything useful from his inner thoughts. Shing Xiao usually had a lot of thoughts in his mind and talked a lot, but once he really entered a highly concentrated state, he had no distracting thoughts at all. After waiting for a long time, Shing Xiao finally said in a deep voice, what Wenbei left wasn't a USB drive but a memory card. She hid it in the gap of the seat in the auditorium of School X. The content inside is a complete process of a murder. In a warehouse, there were a lot of people around, and your clear face was shown. When I heard Shing Xiao finish speaking, I widened my eyes first. Did Wenbei really manage to film it? And without a doubt, this was probably the punishment scene that Chu Mulin had just mentioned. Give it to me. Chu Mulin suddenly raised his voice. And then there was silence all around. I was so nervous that my palms started to sweat. Shing Xiao sneered, you're planning to kill both of us, and you still expect me to give it to you. As soon as Shing Xiao finished speaking, the group of people surrounding him suddenly assumed a posture as if they were going to snatch it by force. But Shing Xiao's voice didn't waver at all. I prepared the thing, but I didn't say I brought it with me. Let Wen Nan leave. And I'll stay, as long as she's safe and sound. I promised to give you the thing. Chu Mulin flatly refused. Impossible. Since I dared to tell her everything, I have no intention of letting her leave. You can go, and she stays. I can also get that shipping route that your Shin family has always wanted. The Wen family has caused me so much trouble. If you hadn't married her the first moment after the Wen family's accident, do you think I would have let her live until today? Shing Xiao remained unmoved. If my people don't see Wen Nan leave safely before dawn, they will hand this thing over to the police. If you don't believe it, you can kill us right now. Chu Mulin's voice was ice cold. Shing Xiao, don't underestimate me. I also have people outside. Even if I really kill you too, your people may not have the ability to hand over the thing. Then you can give it a try." Xing Yanci even let out a light laugh, which was the strong confidence brought by his absolute certainty. "It's difficult to bring you down, but I can still manage to bring the entire Shin family down with you and die together with you. Let's see if, after all your painstaking efforts to climb to this position, you're willing to risk your life and bet with me." As soon as Xing Yanci finished speaking, I heard Chu Mulan curse viciously. Sure enough, when Chu Mulan told me everything so readily just now, he had no intention of letting me live. It seemed that Wen Bei and my parents had caused him a lot of trouble. He probably hated our Wen family to the core. It's just that he probably didn't expect, even though he had been monitoring Wen Bei so closely, Wen Bei could still obtain such evidence that left him with no room to refute. He probably originally planned to get the evidence from us and then directly deal with us. But now he had to consider one more thing, however. After listening to Xing Yanci's words and combining all the things that had happened during this period, I suddenly understood everything. The truth made me couldn't help laughing. In an instant, everyone's eyes were suddenly turned towards me. Chu Mulan looked at me fiercely and said coldly, "Wen Nan, what are you laughing at?" "I'm laughing at your arrogance and conceit. You thought you had Wen Bei under your control, but in the end, you were just being played by her." I laughed more and more recklessly. Chu Mulan suddenly pushed through the crowd and walked in front of me. Xing Yanci immediately followed. At the same time, the group of people surrounding Xing Yanci all took out their guns and pointed them at him. The atmosphere at the scene instantly became extremely tense. However, even though I was surrounded by guns now, I wasn't scared at all. I even looked at Chu Mulan with a smile and said softly, "I didn't lie to you just now. The USB drive you got was the one that Wen Bei pretended to pass on the message with. To be honest, when I first saw the content inside, I couldn't figure it out either, but now I know. After Wen Bei found that she really couldn't break through your surveillance, she chose to give the clue to Xing Yanci. She was being closely monitored by you, so she didn't dare to pass on the memory card openly. After all, this memory card was the biggest threat to you. Once there was any mistake, all her previous efforts would be in vain. So, as a last resort, she used a very roundabout way. Xing Yanci timely picked up the conversation and told Chu Mulan how Wen Bei had passed on the message to him. Chu Mulan couldn't accept it. "Impossible. I only took her to the base for the first time in City Z. She had no chance to record the video at all. Moreover, how could she have prepared to pass on the message with the diary so early? Are you two playing me?" I sneered. "That's why I said you were completely played by Wen Bei. After she was forced to join you, she knew that it would be impossible for her to get away easily, so she prepared a basket in advance. If she couldn't expose you herself, she would throw the evidence into the basket, and this diary is the basket." Chu Mulan was completely stunned. He still didn't believe it. "What you said is just a conclusion. From the time she left the diary until her death, almost a year passed. There were too many possibilities of accidents during this period. It was simply impossible to achieve." I rolled my eyes without hesitation. "That's why I said you're stupid. After Wen Bei was threatened by you to join, she should have been closely monitored by you immediately. At that time, she judged that your power was very strong, and among the people she knew, the only one who could compete with you was Xing Yanci. But with her character, she wouldn't simply involve Xing Yanci in such a dangerous matter. So at first, she definitely planned to try to expose you herself. Only if she really couldn't do it would she ask Xing Yanci for help. If she wanted to ask Xing Yanci for help, she had to leave a clue for Xing Yanci. You're right, she really couldn't have predicted everything that would happen a year in advance. So with the things she could use at that time, only this diary could convey an accurate signal in advance. Whether it was the password, the address, or the diary itself, they were all conveying the same message. That is, this matter was related to you. And the reason she finally chose to put the memory card in the place where you first met was just to match the clue she left for Xing Yanci. Chu Mulan's eyes became more and more fierce, and they even began to turn red faintly. She even made the worst-case scenario. The code she left could only be understood by Xing Yanci. In this way, even if you found this diary in advance, it wouldn't be easy for you to find the memory card. However, the way Wen Bei passed on the message was indeed too obscure. Even we investigated for a long time and even took the risk to get close to you. I paused for a moment, then gave Chu Mulan a malicious smile. Come to think of it, I should thank you. If you hadn't told me the date and place where you first met, We might have had to wait until the school auditorium was renovated to find the memory card. In fact, if I hadn't been reborn this time, we would never have known what Wenbei really meant until we died. Wenbei's plan was full of uncertainties and elements of luck, and it was full of loopholes. However, the more I thought about it, the sadder I felt. Wenbei's situation must have been extremely difficult at that time. She was being monitored and forced to do things she didn't want to do. She held the hopes of those abducted people in her hands, but she was at a loss as to how to save them. Chu Mulin was involved in a business with great influence. There were possibilities that the people he blocked couldn't pass on the evidence, and possibilities that the methods he discovered couldn't be used. She didn't have the opportunity to make mistakes. Once Chu Mulin knew the existence of this evidence, there would be no way to stop his criminal behavior. Wenbei must have endured indescribable pressure. Perhaps choosing such an extreme way in the end was also because she really wanted to be free. As for this USB drive, I'm afraid she deliberately let you find it. The purpose was to completely divert your attention. For this, she even risked her own life. I spoke again, and my whole demeanor became completely cold. Chu Mulin, you're too conceited. You took advantage of Wenbei's feelings and thought you had her completely under your control. However, you never expected that it was this relationship you despised that exposed everything about you and finally sent you to hell. After I finished speaking, Chu Mulin roared out of control. What he thought was having everything under control was just an illusion of being toyed with by others. Wenbei had been dead for 2 years, and he had been played for 2 years. He thought he was acting with me and tricking me into finding the USB drive for him. But he didn't know that the real evidence was also delivered to us by his own actions. This realization must be more painful than killing him. The more he couldn't accept the reality, the more satisfied I felt. Shin Yanxi had quietly walked to my side. Before we could have any communication, Chu Mulin suddenly laughed twice and said harshly, "Forget it, Wenbei is already dead. I don't need to argue with her. Neither of you is leaving today. I don't want the memory card anymore. But I'll take your lives." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took out a gun and pulled the trigger at me. He was so fast that I didn't even have time to react. However, the next second, Shin Yanxi suddenly threw himself on me. I was stunned for a moment and shouted Shin Yanxi's name in a voice that lost its usual pitch. Suddenly, a neat and orderly sound of footsteps came from outside the room. I smelled the smell of blood coming from Shin Yanxi, and it gradually overlapped with the memories of my previous life. Those emotions that I had forcibly suppressed before couldn't be controlled anymore and surged out all at once. I seemed to be able to do nothing but shout Shin Yanxi's name. I didn't even feel that my wrist was scratched by the iron chain during the struggle. Nan, I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't be afraid. I don't know when Shin Yanxi hugged me and gently soothed my back. I was gradually pulled back to reality by his voice. I don't know when a group of police officers rushed into the room. However, Chu Mulin was nowhere to be seen. I stared blankly at Shin Yanxi. He gently kissed away my tears and slowly raised the corners of his mouth. "It's all over, Nan. I didn't forget what you said. We wanted to win without any worries, and this time we did it. It took me a long time to react." It turned out that Shin Yanxi's actions this time were all in cooperation with the police. I let out a long sigh of relief and completely relaxed. Then I fainted unceremoniously. Everything was finally over. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. Shin Yanxi was shot in the leg by Chu Mulin's final attack, and his hospital bed was next to mine. But he didn't lie in his own bed. Instead, he squeezed in with me. When he saw that I had woken up, he suddenly hugged me and cried silently. It was really not easy for us to be alive and hugging each other after going through so many things. But no matter how difficult it was, I couldn't stand it anymore after he hugged me for 20 minutes. I forcefully pulled Shin Yanxi away. Just as I was about to ask him to tell me what happened next, I suddenly remembered the last sentence I heard before I fainted. I suddenly widened my eyes in disbelief and said, "By the way, Shin Yanxi, you said this time before. Could it be that you?" Shin Yanxi wiped the corner of his eye and smiled at me. "Yeah, I remembered something these past few days." Sure enough, Shin Yanxi remembered the things of his previous life. Then, Shin Yanxi told me the parts that I didn't know. After I was kidnapped, he remembered some things. At that time, his people had already found the memory card, and he had also gotten in touch with the police. After he submitted the evidence to the police by combining the memories of the 2 lives, they formulated this plan. In his previous life, Shin Yanxi had already figured out the structure of the base where I was kidnapped clearly, so this time, He drew a map for the police according to his memory, and after discussion, it was decided that he would come first to delay the time and divert Chu Mulan's attention. Xing Yanxi had the latest communication and recording devices provided by the police on him, in order not to alert the enemy. He really went to meet Chu Mulan alone. And the police monitored the situation here in real time outside. At the same time, another group of police officers started searching for evidence in the base according to the map provided by Xing Yanxi. They made sure not to give Chu Mulan any chance to take advantage of loopholes and turn the situation around this time. After we found the USB drive, Chu Mulan might have been in a hurry or overconfident. He didn't bring many people to the base that day, and they were quickly subdued by the police. The moment Chu Mulan saw the police, he ran away from the other side, but in the end, he only reached the exit and was captured by the police who had already set up an inescapable net. There was nothing more we could do at this point. After that, we cooperated with the evidence collection. When this shocking human trafficking case that shook the whole country was completely solved, I went to see Chu Mulan once. I took Wenbei's diary and gave it to him. Not for anything else, I just thought that Wenbei should witness his death. Before leaving, on a whim, I asked him one more question. Chu Mulan, did you have any real feelings for Wenbei at that time? Chu Mulan was silent for a while, and finally gave a mocking smile. You young masters and ladies born with a silver spoon in your mouth are really ridiculous. You surely don't understand, living in a dark and sunless house, eating the vegetable leaves that others don't want, and wearing the clothes fished out of the trash can. The feeling that everyone looks down on you and anyone can bully you. Even when I returned to the Chu family later, the situation was the same. Feelings, only people like you would value such useless things. I'm not that pathetic. You see, in the end, even though everyone scolds and spurns me, no one looks down on me. They have to admit that I'm amazing, which proves that my choice was right. After listening, I nodded and didn't say anything more. Everyone has their own aspirations, but I really wish that he could be a beast in his next life. On the day Chu Mulan was executed, Xing Yanxi and I went to the cemetery together. The police later told us, Chu Mulan's business sold young girls. They focused on quality rather than quantity, and the number of people transported at one time wasn't large. These girls would first receive unified training in various reception or flattering skills after being sent abroad. Then they would be sold to their regular business partners. And those girls were either orphans or people who were not valued in their families. Some people disappeared without anyone knowing. Some people were ignored by their families after receiving some money. In the end, very few people actually reported the cases, which was why Chu Mulan had been operating until now. There was only one girl. She was born in a family that favored sons over daughters and had depended on her elder sister since childhood. She was sold to Chu Mulan after being deceived by her boyfriend, and her parents ignored her after receiving a sum of money. But her elder sister didn't accept it and finally found a way to get into this place. And the video left by Wenbei was actually taken by this elder sister. This was learned from the mouths of the surviving girls, but they couldn't clearly say what exactly happened at that time. The girl who gave the memory card to Wenbei said that among those abducted girls, there had always been a rumor. That is, no matter who wanted to escape, they should take this memory card with them. Over the years, this memory card had passed through the hands of many girls. They all knew that if they were caught while trying to escape, they wouldn't be killed immediately. They still had the opportunity to meet other people and could pass this evidence on. As long as there was one person who didn't give up, one day they could save everyone. That day, this memory card was given to Wenbei, and thus, the prelude to all the subsequent events was opened. I told the whole story to Wenbei, my parents. The result of the struggle wasn't necessarily victory, or victory would come at a great cost, but if people really had souls, I hope that Wenbei and my parents can let go after hearing this. At least we did a good thing, didn't we? I chattered on in front of the tombstone for a long time. Xing Yanxi stayed by my side all the time, although he didn't say anything. Just his presence made me feel very at ease. When we were leaving and walking out, I suddenly grabbed his hand and said, Xing Yanxi, I'll tell you a secret. I can really read minds. I turned to him and winked slyly, then slowly said, for example, I know that you were just thinking of asking Xiao Zhan to prepare a press conference to officially clarify the so-called substitute rumor. Xing Yanxi's pupils dilated slightly. He blurted out, how do you know? I hummed triumphantly. I told you I can read minds. Xing Yanxi didn't say anything. I continued, we both know that Chu Mulan fanned the flames of that substitute rumor. Now that he's dead, the rumor is long gone. Let's just deal with it coldly. It will be dispelled naturally after a long time. I could hear Shin Yanxi's muttering in my ear. Chongjia, be good and listen. I'll let you do whatever you want tonight, okay? Shin Yanxi, stop muttering in your heart. If you have the guts, say it out loud, okay? Me. The moment we walked out of the cemetery, a group of butterflies flew past me. They flew around the cemetery in a group. Then they all flew towards the clear blue sky together, charging towards a new life.